All right, welcome to the June 21st, 2023 Environmental Quality Commission meeting. This is an in-person and virtual meeting with the EQC members, city staff, and members of the public. I would like to introduce staff and EQC members present. So we have all members of the Environmental Quality Commission, Commissioners Evans, Kissel, Lynn, McKenna, Pellegrini, Yopart, and Vice Chair Schmidt and Chair Headley. And in terms of staff, we have Rebecca Lucky as our sustainability manager and Ori Paz, management analyst 2. Ms. Lucky, would you provide instructions to the commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair Headley. So for this meeting, if there's any members of the public who are in attendance remotely, you can provide public comment once the chair calls for public comment for up to 3 minutes. You can use the raise hand feature, which is usually next to your name or at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And I'll be able to unmute you and you'll be able to, again, speak to the commission for up to 3 minutes. I don't see anybody in the public, but if you were, you would sign a comment card at the front door and then provide it to me and I could then be sure that your public comment is heard. And again, sorry for those who are remote too, if you are on a landline, you push *9 and I'll be able to unmute you then. Thank you so much. I return the meeting back to you.
Great, thank you. So under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. And note that the commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda items brought up under public comment, other than to provide general information. Ms. Lucky, would you please call for public comment?
At this time, if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on an agenda item or an item that's not on the agenda, you can use that raise hand feature next to your name or at the bottom of the screen. I'll be able to unmute you. If you're on the landline, please press *9. I do not see any hands raised at this time. I'll turn the meeting back to you, Vice Chair Headley.
Great, thanks. All right, so moving on to regular business. The first item is D1, which is approving the May 17th EQC meeting minutes. All right, so I think the first order of business is any clarifying questions from the EQC before we take public comment. Yeah. All right, any public comment?
At this time, if there's any members of the public who would like to speak on approving the May meeting minutes, and use the raise hand feature. Be able to unmute you. I do not see any hands raised at this time.
All right,
Back to you.
thank you. All right, so it's open for any EQC discussion, or we can move straight to a motion if we want to zip things along.
I'm trying to remember because I think I had the motion, but when we were talking about eliminating some of the subcommittees, one that I guess we eliminated was the transportation decarbonization. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember whether we did or didn't.
As I remember, we only had 2 left.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I move to approve the minutes.
So
Great. So that was Evans and Kissel.
Yeah, thank you. To approve the May minutes. I will take roll call. I can say, oh, we could probably, since you're all here, do show of hands. Unanimous. Motion passes to approve the May minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, D2. Review and discuss the annual city arborist report. I'm really excited for this report because, well, people in Menlo Park really care about their trees. They're very passionate. And I'm excited to hear your report, Ms. Keller, after you've had a whole year under your belt now, not like last year, where you had maybe 2 months when we heard your report. So I'm excited to see what you've been up to. How this is going to work is first we'll hear the presentation by city staff. Then there will be an opportunity for clarifying comments here, and then public comment, and then discussion. Okay, so over to you. Ms. Keller, are you doing the presentation?
Yes, Joanna and I will both be presenting. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Jillian Keller. I'm Menlo Park City Arborist. As previously mentioned, I've been city arborist for about a year and 2 months now. And presenting with me is Joanna Chen, management analyst. She is a tremendous help to our team and assists with permitting and with responding to resident inquiries about trees. Next slide. All right, to begin with, an overview of our tree division, city staff includes core maintenance workers, public works tree supervisor Natividad, who wasn't able to be with us today, myself, the city arborist, and Joanna, our management analyst. Our team also includes a contractor who assists with our tree maintenance and 2 other contractors who assist with permit review. As you all know, City of Menlo Park has an established history of investing in and maintaining its urban forest. We've been a Tree City USA city for about 24 years. And for the past 8 years, we've also won the Growth Award. Both of these designations show that the city is very much invested in trees and maintaining our urban forest for the benefit of our community. Next slide. There we go. So some exciting developments over the past fiscal year. Natividad Alamo was promoted from senior maintenance worker to our public works tree supervisor after 17 years of service to the city and its community. It was really exciting to be able to recognize him. He now oversees the city tree crew and our contractor and all of the maintenance on our city trees. We also recently added 3 new maintenance workers to our team, just in time too, before the start of the storm season. Prior to that, we only had 1 tree maintenance worker, and it's rather difficult to get work done then. We also updated a lot of our tree work equipment. For example, we replaced our old aerial lift truck, which was more than 20 years old, with a hybrid aerial lift truck. Also helps reduce our emissions. Our team also obtained new licenses and certifications. For example, some of our tree workers obtained their Class B licenses, and Natty specifically obtained his International Society of Arboriculture Certified Arborist certification. We also updated our city standard tree protection specifications for development to convey what adequate tree protections are in a more clear and concise manner. Previously, those specifications hadn't been updated since 2010. And we also, in large part due to the severity of the storms we experienced earlier this year, created and have been implementing an expedited review process for emergency tree removal requests. Next slide.
Great, so there's about 19,000 city maintained trees that include streets and parks. The top 3 public trees that we have in the communities are the Copenhagen oak, the sweet gum, which is also commonly known as the Lippitt ambers, and then the 3rd one would be the London plane. And so here we have some stats of our tree inventory for this fiscal year. So number of trees planted, it's about 185. Number of trees pruned, that's about 5,300. Number of trees removed, that's a little bit low, a little bit under 200. So when we go to the next slide, we just want to report out on the storm damage that happened late 2022 and early 2023. So of course, we all know that Menlo Park and the Bay Area had experienced some unusual storm activities, which caused some unprecedented numbers of trees failures due to combined impact of the years of drought stress, saturated soil conditions, and strong wind gusts. And so the city received approximately 340 calls. So in the slide, we have some stats, the 95 miscellaneous tree issues that includes inspections, trimming requests, pruning requests, trees that are leaning onto the power lines. Additionally, the city has about approximately 48 reported down trees blocking the public right of way. And so during this time, there has been some reporting challenges. So it's a little bit hard to distinguish which trees are private trees and which trees are public trees. And then those that fell on private trees, sometimes they are not reported to the city. The ones that are reported to the city is usually because there's some property damages. So the picture that we have on the slide is an example of a down tree tangled with the PG&E line. And so the process is that we'll get a call saying, hey, there's a down tree, there's some tangles, PG&E. The city will coordinate with PG&E to de-energize that line, and that line would need to be brought down. So during that storm, it was a long process because PG&E, they were also fielding calls from other jurisdictions. So once that line is being brought down and de-energized, then the city will go back out to the streets to make sure that the street is safe to open for the public use. Yep. So next slide, please.
All right. Post-storm recovery. So specifically for city-owned and maintained trees, my team has been very diligent regarding inspecting and removing or performing preventative corrective structural pruning on trees that were damaged during the storms. There were some trees, unfortunately, that were so severely damaged that we had to remove and replace them. One such tree was the big 200-year-old coast live oak that toppled over on Patricia Place, pictured there. And just recently, we replaced it with a new oak. This site is below overhead high voltage power lines. So we spent a lot of time talking with the residents of Patricia Place. They were still very much interested in an oak tree replacement. And we were able to identify a dwarf oak called a lacy oak, which is native to New Mexico, I believe, which should not conflict with the overhead power lines. We also have a long-term tree replacement plan for Newlawn Park specifically. As many of you may know, we had 3 very large blue gum eucalyptus whole tree failure during those severe storms. And we received a lot of feedback from the public regarding the safety of the remaining very large blue gum eucalyptus trees. Admittedly, that is a species that experienced more failures than other species during the severe storms. So this past month, we identified about 6 or 7 blue gum eucalyptus to prioritize for removal. So with the help of our contractor, West Coast Arborist, we removed those trees. They had poor health or had severe structural defects that couldn't be mitigated. So we removed those. And just 2 weeks ago, we replanted oak trees in that area. So next year, we'll identify a couple more trees for removal and replace those with other oaks as well. And we selected coast live oak, valley oak, and holly oak, a rather robust combination of different deciduous and evergreen oaks that should, as they grow, provide screening and other benefits for the users of that park. We also recently released a digest about post-storm recovery. So we communicated with the public information about how they're supposed to inspect their trees following a storm and how they're supposed to engage a private consulting arborist to inspect their trees, to identify trees that might need to be pruned or cabled, or that might possibly need to be removed because of storm damage. And even though the storms have subsided, some of the effects of the storm have been lingering and have been contributing to an increased likelihood of tree failure even now. There are some trees that, how do I explain this? During the severe storms, when there were very strong gusts, the trees, they experience micro fractures in their wood. And then that can leave them more prone to experiencing a branch failure or splitting down the middle of their trunk. Or they move so much in the wind that their structural roots were compromised. And it's not until now, we recently experienced some rather high winds this weekend that some of those trees fail. So we're continuing to receive a couple emergency tree removal requests, and we've been reviewing those again on an expedited basis and issuing permits as appropriate. Next slide.
So for street trees, how can residents reach out to us? Residents can request street trees to be planted in front of their property. In the public right of way, the city has a 5-year routine maintenance. The city also partners with Canopy 2, who is a nonprofit organization locally. And so residents can report, either request a street tree to be planted in front of their property, or if they would like their city tree to be inspected or trimmed outside of that routine maintenance. The city has a service request portal. It's called Act Menlo Park. I included the link. That is the best way to submit a request to city staff. Next slide, please.
All right, other responsibilities of our team besides tree maintenance and heritage tree removal permit review, we help organize our annual Arbor Day organization. We also provide root pruning and preservation consultation for hardscape repair work. So sometimes residents need to repair their driveway, or sometimes contractors who work with the streets department need to replace curb, gutter, and sidewalk. If those are city trees, either I will or my colleague Natividad will go out and inspect the roots and communicate to the contractor what roots we need to remove, what roots we can just shave down, and what roots we must absolutely preserve in order to maintain the structural integrity and the health of the tree. So we do provide that as well. We also review and update our administrative guidelines. So those are specifically related to heritage tree removal permit applications. With the help of my contractor, we also review building and demolition permits. So, for example, for every single demolition and building permit that the city receives, I will go out to the property and I'll inspect the work area and I'll review the plans and I'll determine whether there are any anticipated impacts to heritage trees. And if there are, I'll update the permit record indicating that an arborist report is required. And then the applicant will have an arborist report prepared by a city-approved consulting arborist with specific recommendations for tree removal and preservation based on the scope of proposed work. And then my contractor will review the arborist report and the plans and make sure that it's all in compliance with the city's requirements, that the trees that are being proposed for removal, there's enough justification for removal, and that the trees that are very healthy, that are high in value, that the applicant explores alternatives to preserving those trees and altering their designs. We also help ensure protection of trees during construction. So we do require that project arborists verify tree protection installation prior to the start of demolition or construction. So the project arborist was supposed to prepare a tree protection verification letter and send it to me. I review it. I confirm that all the tree protection is installed on site in compliance with city requirements and with the arborist report that was approved. And after I provide that approval, then the demolition or the building permit is issued so that we're making sure that the trees are protected before they break ground. And sometimes we also get calls from concerned residents regarding protection of trees during construction, and I'll address those, and I'll go off to the site and talk with the contractors, talk with the property owners, talk with the concerned residents, and try to engage their project arborist to evaluate any damage that might have occurred due to construction, help develop a plan for mitigating the impacts of that damage, and ensuring that the tree protection measures are reinstalled if there wasn't tree protection installed in the first place. And in order to ensure compliance, we do sometimes issue stop work orders to incentivize compliance. And lastly, we also investigate potential heritage tree violations. A heritage tree violation is removal of a heritage tree without a permit, excessive pruning of a tree, mutilation, unbalancing of a heritage tree. So usually a concerned neighbor will see that a tree is being removed or pruned on their neighbor's property, and they'll call me and we'll check to see if we have a permit on file. If not, I'll go to the property, I'll talk with the property owners, investigate, see if there was in fact a violation. And if there was, then we would issue a fine. And the fine would either be $5,000 or the appraised value of the tree, whichever is greater. And that fine would be set as the heritage tree removal permit application fine. So we would retroactively issue a removal permit if it is a tree removal, and that fine would be the permit application fee. All right, next slide.
So our, the tree division responsibility is all due to the heritage tree ordinance. Which is an ordinance that ensures that the community maintains a large population of healthy trees in the long term. So the next slide, please. So every jurisdiction has their own definition of what a heritage tree is. For Menlo Park, it is based on the measurement size of the trunk diameter, not necessarily the type of the tree species. So for example, any tree other than oaks that has a diameter with a circumference of 75.1 inches or a diameter of 15 inches or more measured at 54 inches above natural grade is defined as a heritage tree. There's other definitions up there, but just wanted, that is a common question that staff does field is, what is a heritage tree? Do we need a removal permit for it? If a tree is smaller than these measurements that are listed above, a tree removal permit is not required. So next slide, please.
All right, as many of you may already know, we updated our heritage tree ordinance in 2020 to briefly summarize the change. With the adoption of this new ordinance, there was a change in the appeal process. This helped us streamline the review and the approval process for heritage tree removals related to poor tree condition and safety. And now there are more stringent requirements for development related removals, and that has also created more incentive for developers and property owners to preserve trees during development. Next slide.
So the pruning process has two main categories. One's non-development and then the other one's development related. And so this table compares what the difference is, what the application requirements are. The replacement tree requirements are also different. And then the appeal process is also different. The city recently added an emergency removal process to expedite emergency trees in response to the storm damage, the storm events that we had earlier this year. You know, I can go in depth if anybody has any questions during the FAQ, is more than welcome to walk through this table. Next slide, please. So this is just a list of resources for residents to know about how to apply for a permit. We do have a main tree website that has all of the information. And then if you're interested in learning if your neighbor has a permit or what the status is of your own permit application, we do also have a public facing portal that residents can type in the address and look up the status of the permit applications or if their neighbor has a permit. And then we also have a dashboard that will be on the next slide about the statistics of the permit applications that the city has received. So this is a screenshot of the stats that we have received. You know, this is pretty dynamic. You can go specific into each districts if you want to know about where you live. Say you live in District 2, you want to know a little bit more about your own area. You could do that in the upper right corner and press the number 2, and all of that information will change to that. But this is just a quick snapshot of you know, how much intake that the tree division has reviewed or processed, approved, denied, and whatnot. So next slide.
Okay. So this table presents a fiscal year comparison for the number of heritage tree removal permit applications that the city has received over the past few years. I'll let you take a minute to read through that. I'd also like to note that the numbers that we have for fiscal year 2021 and 2022 do not include the heritage tree removal for Willow Village and the golf course. And those involved a lot of trees. All right, next slide. All right, so these are some of the things that we have in progress currently. We're updating the administrative guidelines with the help of the city attorney. So we're, as a part of that update, adding another removal criterion specifically for conflict with an existing habitable structure. For example, there was a really big, healthy coast redwood on College Avenue, and it was literally half a foot from the house. Like the trunk of the tree was starting to grow and embed in the roof of the house. They got an inspection done by a professional home inspector and engineer, and they found that there was damage to the foundation, but you can't get approval for the removal of a tree like that based on tree health or tree death or invasive species. You can't quite do it with tree risk either. You go through the ISA's tree risk assessment process, it doesn't result in a risk rating or high or extreme. And that's what you need in order to get approval for those removals. So we're gonna create that criteria specifically for those cases. We're also working on updating the mitigation requirements. So for example, if you remove a smaller tree, say it's like 16 inches in trunk diameter, and you want to plant a replacement tree, you are required to plant a 15-gallon replacement tree. If you can't plant a replacement tree, if there's no space on the property, then you have to pay a mitigation value of $200. That $200 is supposed to accurately reflect the cost of purchasing, shipping, and planting a 15-gallon tree. So that $200 and our other mitigation values are based on values from about 2010. So they're very outdated. And so much has happened, and the costs of purchasing trees and the cost of labor have increased dramatically. So I would like to update those costs to more accurately reflect the cost of purchasing and planting a tree. That's something that we're gonna need to think very carefully about, because we have been receiving a lot of feedback from the community regarding the mitigation requirements for really big trees. For example, if you remove like a 60-inch coast live oak, the mitigation value for that is $5,000. And that on top of the cost of removing an oak of that size, $6,000, let's say. It's really big cost for a property owner, and increasing that $5,000 mitigation fee even more. That's something that we'll need to think very carefully about. Other things that we've been working on, adding more city approved consulting arborists to our list. So as you might know, for arborist reports for building or demolition permits, or for heritage tree removal permit applications, we do require arborist reports from city approved consulting arborists. So these are arborists who have demonstrated that they have the experience and the knowledge and the certifications to provide valuable and knowledgeable recommendations. And we often admittedly get feedback from residents that all of the arborists on our list are too busy to prepare arborist reports for their projects. So we're working on expanding that list. I think it's nonetheless important to have a list of experienced and qualified arborists who have demonstrated that they can assess trees and prepare quality arborist reports and good recommendations to clients. We actually recently received an application, right? So we're hoping to add more arborists to that list. We're also working towards the creation of an urban forest master plan. We're implementing certain phases now, such as continuously updating our city tree inventory. For example, if we are working in a neighborhood and we notice that there's a city tree across the street that isn't captured in our inventory, we'll add it as we remove and replace trees. As we plant more trees as requested by residents, we add those, of course, to our city tree inventory. So this helps us get a better idea of how many city-owned and maintained trees we have, what species they are, how big they are, what their health and structure are. As demonstrated in the tables and the dashboards that Joanna presented, we've also been tracking our tree removal and replacements to get an idea of how many trees are being removed and replaced. And we've also been working specifically with Canopy to identify vacant planting sites in Bellhaven and to engage with the residents there and to hopefully plant more trees there as well. The city has a plan for setting aside funds for an urban forest master plan as a part of a capital improvement project. So I believe for this coming fiscal year, we're gonna set aside $250,000. And the remaining $250,000 we're hoping to receive in the form of grants that we'll apply for. And that's based on an estimated cost of about $500,000 for the creation of an urban forest master plan. And of course, we do hope to partner with nonprofits such as Canopy to engage with the Belhaven community and to plant more trees there. Okay, I think that was it for that slide. Thank you very much.
I have a question. I think in the deck that I saw, there were a couple more slides after the thank you. Is that true?
So that was an old version that accidentally got published. This is the more updated and recent one.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
I have one question as well. So on the emergency, the streamlined emergency removal, is that for after a storm? Or, because I noticed there's a lot of conversations after the storm on Nextdoor where residents were saying, hey, we have trees that we know are at risk and the city is not letting us take them down. And then, you know, the storm comes and they fall on our house, our neighbor's house, a car, whatever. So is that streamlined process also apply to pre-storm requests?
Yes,
Okay.
we receive those requests throughout storm season. And we continue to receive and review those requests as they come in. And to clarify, the emergency tree removal permit process is based on the International Society of Arboriculture's tree risk assessment process. Only trees that pose an extreme risk qualify. So that is a tree that is showing signs of active uplift and structural failure and imminent likelihood of whole tree failure. So if you have a big coastline oak, for instance, and you were pretty sure that that tree was straight yesterday, and now it's leaning at a slight angle, and you look at the ground and you see soil fissures, that's a sign that the tree is experiencing imminent risk of failure, so that would qualify. So a resident could call me or email me, text or email me photos, or sometimes I would just go out to the site myself, make that a priority and confirm whether or not the tree is experiencing those signs. Then we would issue the permit on site right there, and then they can proceed with the removal. And then later on, we would work with them to retroactively issue a removal permit. Another example of an instance in which we can issue that kind of emergency permit is when a tree is showing signs of splitting down the middle, down its trunk. If a tree has branches that originate at the same point and the tree is beginning to split at that main attachment, and you see a crack and it has white, wet, fresh sapwood, then that is another instance in which there's no feasible way of preventing that from happening, from failing, and we need to remove the trees. It's an imminent risk of failure. I admittedly received a lot of requests regarding emergency removal of redwoods because they dropped a branch. And redwoods, yes, are prone to dropping branches in stormy weather with severe winds. They are prone to dropping branches. Unfortunately, that didn't qualify as an emergency removal because the consequences of a branch failure impacting a target like a car or a house are not based on the ISA's tree risk assessment process considered significant or severe. So that does not result in an extreme risk, and those residents would have to go through the heritage tree removal permit application process.
Well, thank you both for the presentation. This is an opportunity to ask any clarifying questions if there are any additional ones before we take public comment.
I have a basic question. Is this I have a bunch of other questions, and this is a great presentation. Who is this presentation for? Who's the general audience? Is this something you are going to reuse for others? Just to provide a
Generally for the Environmental Quality Commission, so every year,
oh, so it's just for
it's an annual Arborist report.
just to understand. Is it great presentation?
Oh, thank you.
Quick question, just to make sure I'm thinking about it correctly. That That the data for all the trees planted or removed looked like it was non-development related plantings and removals. Is that correct? Because those numbers, like on the dashboard, feel really low if you factored in big developments.
Sure. Ori, do you mind going to slide 14? Is your question specifically for the dashboard or for the?
It's all the data, it's
Okay.
all the data contain, is all the data contain permit-based and development-based data, or is it just permit-based data?
This is everything.
It's so including all the developments in the city over the last year, there were a total development and private, I guess.
Yeah.
328 is the number.
And so if we go to the next slide, Ori,
Right there, it says 91 development.
and so for this one, we did note. For the 21 to 22 fiscal year, we did note that about 800 tree removals were not counted in that count.
Okay, got it.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't see, okay.
and that was due to, that's a lot of trees to record in our system. We just don't have that staff capacity to add each tree into the data system. But everything else, it is built development, non-development, emergency, whatever we can capture.
Got it. So the number, those numbers are accurate, although the middle number is about 1,200 approximately. Okay, thanks.
And since you are there, that was one of my questions, the previous slide, that is the link that you showed before.
Yes, correct.
So is that Menlo Park maps are GIS? And the-
Maps, yes,
yeah, the-
correct.
Sorry, one more related question to that is. So if heritage tree removal is based on circumference, based on the definition of a heritage tree. If something is under that circumference measurement, it's not tracked at all, or is that data captured in any way?
So trees that are below 15 inches in trunk diameter for non-oak trees, and for oak trees below 10 inches in trunk diameter are not considered protected heritage trees in Menlo Park. They're unregulated. And property owners can remove those without city review and without a permit. Unless it's a city-owned and maintained street tree, in which case, we require city review and approval for the removal of those. Usually just on a case-by-case basis, and we require a replacement with at least a 24-inch box container tree back in the city's right of way. That's a species that I select, that I make sure is appropriate for that site. And sometimes we track those in Excel, right? Street tree removal.
If the street tree is related to new construction, then yes, those are tracked in our, in the dashboard.
Even if they're not heritage trees?
Even if they're smaller, yes, it's
Okay.
non-heritage.
Okay, well, if there's no other clarifying questions, it's time for public comment. Thank
Thank
Ms.
you,
Lefkow.
Chair
Yes,
Headley.
please.
So if there are any members of the public who are participating remotely that would like to make public comment on the city arborist annual report, you can use the raise hand feature that is at the bottom of your Zoom screen or next to your name. And I'll be able to see your raised hand, and I then will be able to unmute you. You can provide public comment for up to 3 minutes to the commission. If you're in the room, there are public comment cards over by the door that can be filled out, and you can return them to me. And I will be able to call you up for a public comment, again, for 3 minutes. With that, I see a few raised hands. We'll start with Kirsten.
Hi, thanks for taking my, it's more of a clarification than a question. On the grid where we had 790 some trees that were taken out for development. What is the purpose of that part of the grid, and would it be important to actually include that number, since it's so high compared to what our typical removal number is? It just seems significant. But I don't know what that grid is supposed to represent or. That's all, just clarification on that.
Yeah. would you-
Sure, yeah, I could definitely speak to that. And so the reason why it was separated out was because the other numbers in that table were all pulled from our city database. So we didn't want to construe that to where that data was pulled.
Thank you, Ms. Chen.
Okay, so the next hand raised is Pam Jones. And be able to unmute your microphone.
Thank you, and thank you to the commissioners and staff for providing trees, not just on Arbor Day, but also on Juneteenth here in the Bellhaven neighborhood, and particularly since you had fruit trees, which is what a lot of residents had been asking for and had not been able to get them through the other methods of tree planting. I also want to thank the commission for support of the Bellhaven neighborhood with the environmental justice element and being able to listen to what residents had to say. Because as you can tell from the presentation last night, the work that we did was substantial and has been verified by the city and their future instructions. My name's Pam Jones. I am a resident of the Bellhaven neighborhood in Menlo Park. I'm a member of several organizations, but to be very, very clear, I speak for myself. So I have a couple of different things that don't all fit together. But they all deal with the tree canopy and recognizing that District 1 has the lowest canopy in the city. So when we look at this data that excluded the 790 trees, probably the vast majority of them are from the Bellhaven neighborhood, and which is we're already deeply affected with air quality over here. So I think we need to really consider looking at these development projects that are taking a substantial number of trees. It's harmful to us, and it is illogical if we're a city that really wants to decarbonize. A little hard to do that if we're chopping down all the trees. An example of that is there is a development approved in Bellhaven, and there were 14 trees that were involved, but there were no new trees. And then with the new trees, do we know how many years it's going to take for them to be comparable to the environment as the tree that's been removed? My next question is, and all of this stuff I'm sure will be in the urban forest master plan and absolutely should. And I see that with we having more staff, we'll be able to do annual follow-ups to make sure that the people, particularly the developments that are supposed to have planted trees, in fact, have done so, and they're alive a year later, and 2 years later, 5 years later, because it doesn't do any good to plant trees and then they die within the year. Another piece is, and I'm glad you mentioned that we have a online that we can see the approved arborists. And I found it curious that for some reason or other, Gachina is not on that list. And, I have no idea what that might be, but it appears to me that logically, an arbor company that's been in the community for over 35 years, so they have a substantial experience here. And and then it is a minority woman that is in charge of the organization. So we get a lot of bang for our buck if we're using them for on this list. So I'm hoping to see them as a part of the urban forest master plan. Let's see, what else? Oh, okay, I think that's it. And if I think of anything else, I can always send you a letter. So again, I just want to reiterate the support that we're being given now is deeply appreciated by myself. And I'm probably one of the biggest critics of the city and all the commissions. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Okay, so next speaker is Lynn Bramlett.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. This is Lynn Bramlett, and yes, I too am part of many organizations, and tonight I'm speaking for myself. I first want to thank the EQC members. I've noted their diligence, their extra duty, going to additional meetings, their obvious conscientiousness and care for what they're doing. So I think you're really a shining example. And I want to thank the staff and especially Jillian. And my husband and I recently had a heritage tree removed, and it was wonderful to have Jillian come out, and the tree is gone, and we already have at least, I think, 7 heritage trees remaining among maybe 10 others. I mean, it's like a little forest here. So I want to thank her very much for that process, very easy to work with. And I do want to raise a comment about a tree that it's in the city property line, or what, the border. The McClenahan, now Bartlett Tree Company, who came out, he wasn't sure if the city ever planted that tree, but it's in kind of the, whatever you call the median. So I will be writing and sending in a comment about it, taking pictures, because, there are definite problems with it. But I guess my main question is, my husband and I would have paid to maintain that. And so you might have cases where people would be willing to pick up the tab. Like we had 2 days of tree trimming recently. And there might be something, as we think about costs in the city, if people are willing to do that with a reputable company, that is something that you might want to consider as part of, general cost savings. So thank you again. I thought the presentation was wonderful. I learned a lot, and I think other groups would want to see it too.
Thank you, Ms. Bramlett.
The next speaker is Megan. If you could please state your last name, be much appreciated.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, my name's Megan Green. I live on University Drive in Menlo Park. There is so much I want to say. First, I just want to applaud our arborists and team. This is a huge, huge ongoing project, clearly working with very understaffed resources. I'm amazed by what they have been able to do in some of the slides and the numbers that were presented. So just a few points, and I just have so many questions, and I will just have to come back another time. Picking up on some of the other speakers, I have thoughts and questions and concerns about development and just the check and balance system when our arbor team is so understaffed. Are we able to, for example, when there's a development or I see in my own neighborhood, many instances of entire lots being raised, huge trees being removed, maybe one tree left on the lot. We never receive letters. These are within 300-foot radius, by the way. We don't receive letters about these trees being removed. I understand there's this $5,000 fine if you remove a heritage tree. Is that correct? You remove a heritage tree without a permit, you pay $5,000. Is that correct? You don't answer, but that's my understanding, which seems like an extremely small, not really much of a disincentive. And I'm wondering what are the opportunities to increase that, when folks are coming in with, paying, for example, $8 million on a lot behind us for a new, $5,000 to remove some trees that are going to be in the way of their development is really, let's be honest, really not a hardship. So I'm just curious about that and wondering what the plans are in the future to address that in a way that's equitable for everybody. So maybe there's some sort of a ratio that gets applied, and also in a way where if a permit is issued to remove a heritage tree, what is the follow-up to guarantee that it's replaced? I just don't see that occurring over the last decade or so. So I'm curious about that. And if there was a way to increase the incentive, as it were, would that any monies collected through violations, for example, does that go back into our tree program, and could that be used then to start creating a more prolific urban forest in areas of our city that are currently not that don't have the same heritage tree density? I will pause there.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Ms. Chen or Ms. Keller, would you like to address the questions that she had raised?
Yeah, sure. So if I follow correctly, there's 3 points. You had a question about the noticing for the tree removals, even though you're within that 300 feet radius. And so, Ori, if you could go to slide 12, that is the table that has the different permitting process. And so I'm not sure the specific development project you're speaking about, but one of the reasons why you may not have received a notice is that maybe the tree was being removed due to its, maybe it was dead, maybe it's declining health, maybe there's a higher extreme risk rating, or if it was a low desirable species. Those 4 reasons, the neighbors do not get noticed. And so if neighbors get noticed when the tree is being removed specifically due to development of the primary removal reason. So I do want to make that distinction between the difference between the tree being dead, having extreme risk rating, decline in health, and as a low desirable tree species. So again, those 4 criterions, neighbors do not get notified. And then you had some specific questions about the follow-up on development projects. So I will let Jillian speak more to that.
The follow-up regarding tree replacements. So applicants are required to schedule a final inspection with me specifically to review the site and ensure that the trees that were supposed to have been retained and preserved on the property were adequately protected and maintained during the course of construction, and also to review where the replacement trees were planted, ensuring the proper species, location, and container size were planted. It's also a condition of approval for each heritage tree removal permit application that we issue that the applicant or the property owner for non-development related email me photos of the replacement trees within 90 days of the tree removal, verifying that the replacement trees were planted. After I receive that verification, I save those photos to our records and then I close out the permit. If after 90 days following the tree removal, we have not received verification of tree replacement from the property owner or the applicant, then I'll reach out to them and I'll ask if they can verify that the replacement tree has been planted. And I think that there was also a question regarding mitigation requirements for development related removals. So the mitigation requirements for development related removals are a lot higher. They're based on the tree's appraised value. So if you remove a big value, for instance, that has an appraised value of $25,000, and it's for the construction of an ADU or a new pool, for example, then that property owner is required to provide $25,000 of mitigation. Ideally, that takes the form of many large replacement trees on the property, if there's space. If not, that remaining unmitigated value is paid as an in lieu fee. So part of our urban forest master plan is going to be funded by in lieu fees that we've collected. The in lieu fees also go back into our tree fund and help fund public tree planting and maintenance elsewhere in the city. And specifically regarding heritage tree violations, again, if there is a confirmed violation, then the fine will either be $5,000 or the tree's appraised value, whichever value is higher. So you may have a Coach Redwood that's removed without a permit with an appraised value of $15,000. They're fined $15,000.
Thank you both for answering those questions. And thank you for the presentation and all the hard work that you've been doing. All right, so at this time, we can open it up, I think, for EQC discussion.
Yes, I'll, for those who are, there was a lot of good questions in the comments. I'll just share the screen where this is what our website looks like. If you Google Heritage Trees Menlo Park, you'll be able to see like all the different ways to look at information. And way at the bottom, there's Jillian's email and contact number. So if you have any questions like about a particular development, feel free to reach out to staff.
Great. Anything else, Ms. Lucky?
That is all. I return the meeting back to you. Thank you.
Okay, well, that was a lot. And it's all, thank you for all the work that you're doing, and especially in light of all the storms. I mean, I felt like even before the storms, there were a lot of tree emergencies happening, and I cannot even imagine what it was like the first part of this year. So thank you for your service. We can now open this up for EQC discussion. What I'd like to try something a little bit different this time, and maybe hear from each member of the EQC, comments, questions, and we can, hear from staff if there are questions, but then make sure every person has a chance to speak, and then, see what kind of comes of that, as opposed to just a free for all. Are y'all up for that?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, great. Who would like to kick us off?
So I thought I saw in the presentation, or maybe when I saw before the presentation, you can actually request to have trees planted on public property wherever you want. Is that right? And I'm just curious to know, are citizens taking advantage of that program? Do you get many requests to put in trees?
Sure. We do have a public tree planting request program, so any resident can reach out and inquire about having a tree planted in the public right of way in front of their house or in front of the house down the street. Hopefully by then you've had a discussion with the neighbor and they're also interested.
Oh, you can do that. I didn't know that.
And then we'll visit the property and determine whether or not it's a viable site for a tree. If there are site constraints, we'll make sure that the species that we plant is appropriate. For example, if there are overhead power lines, we'll make sure that we plant a tree species that doesn't get so tall to conflict with the power lines. Admittedly, unfortunately, we don't get too many tree planting requests. I would say over the past year, I've gotten maybe about 10 requests for tree planting.
Can I build on that one without using my own?
No. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, but you can build on it when it's your turn. Do you want
Ah,
it to be your turn?
Ooh, no, I'll let somebody else go.
Okay. I can go. I have 3 things that I wanted to check in on. Well, first, I love the dashboard and the online resources, and I'm so excited about the Urban Forest Master Plan and the monies that are going toward that. And I'm really happy to hear about the Juneteenth fruit trees. I didn't know that had happened, so that's great. So my questions, the first one is, that the ACT request for service, is that available for private trees? In particular, if there are safety issues that they're worried about, or they might have an inability to pay for proper tree trimming and maintenance or removal. Can the city help with that? Is my first question. The second question is, I think last year we had talked about doing a canopy analysis beyond just street trees sooner rather than later as part of one of the first steps of the Urban Forest Master Plan. So I was curious about that. And third, I was wondering about the openness for having some kind of public conversation about the large scale tree removals that come up with these development plans.
Okay. Great, thanks for those questions. Remind me what the first question was.
The first one was, can the city help with tree trimming or removal for private trees? Or what would be this support for that?
Right, unfortunately, our city crew and our contractor mostly just work on public trees. During the storms, there were a number of private trees that failed and were blocking the public right of way, were blocking streets, were blocking sidewalks. So usually we don't work on private trees, but in those instances, we clear the road, we clear the sidewalk for safe public access, and we'll leave that debris securely off to the side, and it's the responsibility of the private property owner at that point to clear the remainder of the debris. I do sometimes get requests from residents for a professional consultation for their own private trees, for assistance with removal, with trimming. That isn't something that the city can provide at this time. I'm also not supposed to provide a consultation for private trees. It's a liability issue, but sometimes I'll just take a quick look at a photo and I'll say, that looks like drought stress, why don't you increase the irrigation? Or I'll link them to our list of private consulting arborists that are approved by the city and advise them to reach out to a private consultant for a consultation, for an evaluation of the tree's health and structure, and for recommendations for hopefully improving the tree's condition and retaining it, or potentially maybe tree removal if it's reached that point. And that's really as much as I can do.
Thank you. What about the canopy analysis?
The canopy analysis, so that is something that we're still very much interested in. As you know, we don't have a detailed specific urban forest canopy analysis for the city of Menlo Park. That is something we would certainly include in an urban forest master plan, identifying a contractor who can do a flyover and to collect that data and to help us analyze and understand it. We do have data from the U.S. Forest Service, urban forest canopy data that covers the entire Bay Area, but that data is rather general. I think it's based on old, what is it, 2018 data. That's as much as we have now, but that's certainly something that we're hoping to include in an urban forest master plan. Getting an idea of how many trees we have and what areas will help us prioritize areas for planting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A couple things. One builds on your comment with the ability for residents to request a tree on their public right of way. Since it sounds like it may be underutilized, can we use existing city resources, little stations in the library, newsletters to get the word out? And could we do it with a special focus on reaching Belhaven residents about this, given the disparity in canopy in District 1? And I know a lot of them are renters. And so it would be important to reach the residents at large, but also the landlords. And I know a lot of the landlords are overseas, so it would be going through the property management entities there. My guess is it increases their property value. So everybody's incentivized to get the trees. So I wonder if that would be an easy lift for the city, is to just use those existing streams to get the word out. And then number two is I share public commenter Pam Jones' concern about the disparities in tree canopy. And it sounds like this was discussed at the EJ meeting last night that sadly I could not attend. So I don't know if this came up, but I wonder if the city has considered a policy that would put, given the disparity between the trees in District 1 and the trees in all of the other districts, could we increase the restrictions or requirements on developers just in District 1 that would sort of put a harder stance on tree removals until most or all of that disparity goes away? Is that something that the city discussed? I don't know. It's an idea. I don't know if it's something that staff would be interested in pursuing. I'll stop there.
Do we have any precedent of any other policies that vary by district? Would this be the first time we've ever done anything like that? For any, not just for trees, but
Not that I'm aware of, but
I don't know.
I mean, it's a great
Yeah.
idea. I just
I don't
wonder
know.
if it's a precedent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say we're happy to note your feedback and look into it, but yeah, we can investigate that more. I'm sure we have any thoughts, but
Well, specifically regarding requesting tree planting, we did, around the time I started with the city, release a digest regarding a resident's ability to request tree planting. I think we also have information about tree planting requests on our city's trees websites. I am definitely open to other suggestions for how we can reach out to more residents regarding the potential to plant more trees, especially residents and property owners in Bellhaven. We've been admittedly having trouble reaching out to them regarding tree planting.
One thing I might suggest is people use Nextdoor. And so if there's any residents from Nextdoor who are willing to post and reference the website, I think you'll get a fair amount of visibility.
And the other thing I'd add regarding people in Bellhaven is, maybe like not everybody is on Nextdoor and online, so more flyers in the library and other public spaces, and also having it translated to Spanish, I think would really help. Okay, great. So we have a few commissioners we haven't heard from yet. You're not obligated to say anything, but if you have anything you want to add.
yeah, just a couple, thank you very much for a great presentation and for all the work you do for the city and the trees. Just a couple thoughts I had, and it popped up when Rebecca showed the website about tree resources, but I was just wondering what sort of things we can do to help residents and prepare their trees for the extreme weather events. Is there anything maybe the residents don't know or aren't doing that they could do to improve the health of their trees? Maybe that could be something the city makes an effort to do, because it's just, a shame to see any tree come down, whether it's because of the weather or because concerned that it will come down because of weather events. That was one idea I had or thought. The other one was just kind of echoing what everyone else is talking about and the commenters, and just maybe having the city take another look at how they value trees and the cost of removing them to society, just the social cost of losing a tree, and really sort of evaluating the criteria used in terms of allowing a developer to take a tree out for a development, and maybe working more to preserve more trees on that property, and have the development, the project work around those existing trees more so. Those are just a couple thoughts I had.
Thank you. All right, Schmidt, Lynn.
I mean, I have plenty of questions.
Yeah, I just have one more clarifying question. You mentioned for some of the policy updates, one thing was like the $200 fee was a bit outdated because it was based off evaluations in like 2010. I was wondering if there are any similar concerns with like the appraised value of heritage trees, like how do we get those appraisals? Are those also potentially based off of any outdated data?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the Society of American Consulting Arborists has a tree and plant appraisal process. And part of that appraisal process is incorporating the cost of purchasing and installing a standard 24-inch box container tree to replace the tree that's removed. And the consulting arborists who appraise tree value should be using an updated value for the cost of that tree. So the city does require that they include a detailed breakdown of their tree appraisal, and we check that nursery value and make sure that it looks accurate. I think when they first released the 10th edition of the tree and plant appraisal, that value was about $250 for a 24-inch box container tree. I think that value is now like 400 to 500, depending on species and location where the tree is being planted. So they should be using an updated value, and yes, that does increase the trees appraised value.
Yeah, thank you. All right,
So I'll take it. So a great presentation, right? I mean, as I said before, I'm trying to sort it so I don't have too much feedback. So on the website, I think that's wonderful. Is it recent that it was created? Because I didn't know about it. I'm sure that multiple people can provide ideas about how to improve it. So if there is a way that we can provide additional feedback or a channel, and I was just trying it before the meeting on Safari, some things don't render. So I would love to provide that feedback. So that's that one.
Sure, sorry, just to, feel free to email Jillian or myself
Sort of,
if a link does not work.
yeah, and ideas about additional thing. So on the public trees, just put a note there for at the end is I would love to know where there is a list of those, where people can find out what they are. And then you mentioned that there is, I think a 5-year review of the trees. I assume that those are the public ones that are tracked. And as a resident, I would love to know where I am and where my tree is. I think that would be a thing to do. And again, if the information is on the website, as it was mentioned, I mean, we can help provide visibility of that through Nextdoor and whatever it is. I speak Spanish, so I can also do translation or show up in Belhaven and do that type of thing. But just tracking that one, I'm particularly interested as a resident on the interaction between PG&E and the city on those trees. Because I know that PG&E has this approach of just going first on power lines. And it's not clear to me how that impacts the health of the tree. I've had conversation with the PG&E person saying, oh my God, what's going on here? So I don't know. I would be interested in hearing about that one. So, and then I think that the last one I have that I want to call on is on the heritage trees. I've heard multiple people asking, how do I know that the percentage of the pruning I'm doing on the heritage tree is within the range? I know it says there is a quarter of whatever it is, but I've read conversations on Nextdoor where people say my tree removal person doesn't want to touch it because it's a heritage tree, and I'm worried that if it's more than what's approved, then it's going to get dinged. So that's just one feedback. I think I've heard it multiple times, that one. And the last comment on heritage trees is, I was actually thinking about this in the last few weeks, is climate change is going to happen, right? So we're doing our best to reduce the impact of the climate change, but it's going to happen. And canopy is one of the things that can help mitigate the impact of climate change. And whenever we lose trees, we're losing coverage. And when we're talking about replacement cost, I wonder whether there has been any discussion about the ecological, environmental cost of having a big tree removed. It's not just replacing it, it's the temperature on the roof that gets higher, a cool block that goes away. I mean, I know blocks that I can tell that there are no trees because the temperature just goes up. And I don't think that we have that captured anywhere. And I understand how in an emergency, a tree has to be cut, but a discretionary cut of a tree for development, I think should be charged maybe even annually. It's like, you have cut this tree, this is impacting the quality of life of my block. Anyhow, I don't know where that's even possible or any city is considering, but from my perspective, that's real. I mean, climate change is happening and we have to do something. And anyway,
thank you. Do you all want to
sorry.
comment?
That was a lot of questions.
Some of them you don't need to answer because I already,
Yeah, if you're able to like email me and Joanna those questions, and then we can.
I would love to, right.
Responses.
Yeah.
you know, before I became Menlo Park City Arborist, I used to be a private arborist consultant, and I did assist the city of Mountain View with their permit review, and I know that the city of Mountain View for each development project, I really like this. Working with the city of Mountain View, they required a canopy study. So they would take an aerial overview of the development property and quantify the amount of canopy coverage, and then require replacement trees that would replace or exceed the amount of canopy coverage over a 10 to 15 year period. So they would have to plant so many trees of a certain species with the potential to grow so big and develop so much canopy spread to replace the canopy loss. I thought that was very innovative, and one of the only ways in which the loss of those environmental benefits was quantified and required to be mitigated. Would definitely consider something like that for Menlo Park, maybe as a part of an urban forest master plan or our heritage tree ordinance update later on. I don't remember your other question, but
There are several of them were about public trees. Is there a registry of public trees? Can I
Okay.
find my tree in front of my house in there?
So right now we have a city tree inventory that's internal. It's called Arbor Access. It's provided by our contractor, West Coast Arborist. During our recent annual meeting with our contractor, they did mention that there was the potential to take that internal inventory and turn it into a public facing tree inventory that would be accessible on our website. I think that's a fantastic idea for any residents who are interested in information about the trees on their street or in front of their house. We can include information about species, size, maintenance history. So they did send me over some examples of other cities that have similar inventories that they've prepared. And I am working on getting a proposal from them, see how much that might cost. Hopefully it's not too much, but I think it would be a good resource for the community.
I would bet that it would also encourage more applications because people would realize that they are there and then they can have a conversation about it.
Yeah, and specifically regarding any trees near your house, you can reach out to me and Joanna regarding maintenance history. We do have a 5-year inspection and maintenance cycle that our contractor West Coast Arborist assists us with, but any resident can feel free to reach out to us regarding inspection and maintenance outside of that cycle as well.
It would be great if I have it on the website, on the main website, so people can check it out.
Awesome. And I don't know, Commissioner Schmidt, do you have anything you want to say about trees?
Yeah, hey there. I got 3 things that are related, but I'll give them to you one at a time, but they are connected.
Okay.
So the first is thank you. I don't know if everybody on this team knows, but the subcommittee for the EQC worked on a project to get the urban forest master plan moving, and Jillian and actually most of the people in this room were really active participants in that. So we didn't get the grant. CAL FIRE didn't actually issue the money at the end, but we did a lot of work with community members and the team was really helpful. So my first question is around that. 3 things really with the urban forest master plan. I think there's still community-based folks who are pushing that. So Canopy is going to set up a meeting in mid-July with all the interested parties, including Pam and some of the CRC members, and there's still a lot of really active discussions. Canopy did an update to the Belhaven community last week, I think, on urban forest master plan and their all their pieces. So one is I hope that the city will stay engaged in the community-based aspects of that as well. I know Betsy and Justin issued the federal grant or submitted the federal grant, so there is already a lot of collaboration, but that's that work kind of continues outside of what's happening with the city. My question is, now that this is a tier 1 budget priority in the CIP, how does that actually work as far as the money being spent for the 250 that the city's actually earmarked? Because the rest of it's not guaranteed. All the grant-based stuff is nice and speculative, but we could work with you on that as community members to kind of issue more grants or go after more grants. But the 250, like, how does that move the process forward?
Rebecca. And so just to clarify, the 250, city council has another public hearing on the 27th to actually approve the budget. So the 250 hasn't been officially approved.
So let's assume that let's say it does. Then what happens after that? How does that 250 get spent in the service of not just planting trees, but the actual development of the urban forest master plan document itself?
Right, so I believe how it was explained to us is that the grant funding would cover 50% of the overall. Am I saying this? Okay, so staff will continue exploring grant opportunities because we don't know what's currently out there.
Yeah.
So typically these grants will cover 50% of the overall. And with CIP budget, my understanding is that they will continue to roll over. So even though they're budgeted for next year, it's a 5-year budget. Chime in here.
Okay, so I know what you're looking for here. What are the initial activities of the 250?
Because the other 250 is not
If it's not
guaranteed. We'll
guaranteed.
keep helping the city go for that money. I mean, we might get another $1 million, right? Who knows? But I'm just curious about that initial 250.
We're going to need to get back to you on that. I don't know if there's a set of activities identified for the first half of the money, or if it's dependent, if that's the city's contribution to the overall urban forest master plan cost, and we're budgeting it now. So I think we'll do some research and we can follow up with the commission on that answer there.
Okay, and also the mid-July convening is to talk about grants and how do we carry things forward. So Beth at Canopy is going to be sending out an invite, and I'm sure a lot of people will get that invitation. So we can have the grant discussion there, I think. The second related item is more concern, and it showed up a little bit in the urban forest master plan, the way we wrote the first proposal. It's around development. And it's part of the reason why I asked the clarifying question about the numbers of trees. It feels like, well, I have to say, I've been really grateful for the Belhaven community and CRC and Pam and their groups. I've been grateful to attend a lot of those meetings and hear firsthand what residents are saying about trees. And so my concern about development is it feels like in that push and pull that the developers kind of always win those push and pull exercises. Although they have to replace trees, what you hear when you're listening to Belhaven residents, it seems like is those health concerns that happen when those trees are removed. It's not about cost, it's about health. And there are citizens who are feeling those effects really directly. So I guess the question is, it's always going to be less mature trees that are planted, less climate impacts, less health that impacts. What can we do in the city requirements for large scale developments? How do we put more, I hate to say restrictions or standards or whatever the right word is, but it's really the health impacts of those larger developments that feel like the citizens always kind of lose in that equation. And that's not me really saying, that's me sort of regurgitating what I've heard in about 6 different meetings. So what are the thoughts about large scale developers and how to tighten those restrictions?
I think that's also like a really good opportunity for the urban forest master plan to explore those concepts and engage with the community, kind of hear what you're already saying from what you've heard and kind of get it into the plan.
We wrote that in, yeah. We wrote that in the grant that we never were able to submit. So hopefully that carries forward, but
Yeah.
would that be the place to do it, is just make sure that's part of the actual?
Yeah, I mean, the
document?
urban forest master plan, from what I understand, it's going to be a guiding document
Sure.
of how we keep the forest healthy, looking at everything from our current heritage tree ordinance, what we do through city operations, and how we want to move forward, like what do we want the urban forest to look like in 30 years?
Right.
Right. You know, and how we, I mean, even going to like how we deal with aging trees, you know, in neighborhoods, like how are we replenishing? Because all these trees are pretty much the same age as well. It's been a long time concern of the Environmental Quality Commission, so I've been here.
Yeah, and maybe the third item that's quicker and related is, I see how the city values trees by an appraisal and dollar amount. I don't think that resonates with citizens from what I'm hearing. They look at it as a health issue. And I mean, I'm not obviously talking to every district and it's not a formal, it's very anecdotal, it's very much based in District 1. But I think what you'll hear as people go to these District 1 meetings is, hey, they're tearing down trees for development. They're saying we're getting these less mature trees. Sure, there's a compensation value, but is there a way to start factoring in a health impact value as well? Because getting, I think like Megan was saying, getting $5,000 is fine, but that's not what residents are concerned about. So if there's a way we can start researching a way to get a health impact value and make that part of the standards, I think that'll resonate a lot more with citizens. So that's probably more a comment, but.
Do you
Right,
think
because
that?
I'll say like before, you know, we were, like, you know, somebody would, so, 'cause I was part of the Heritage Tree Task Force and Joanna as well. And so what we were looking at before we updated, and I think that's why it's good to visit, maybe not every year, but you know, every 10 years or. But before we made the update, people were removing, you know, large valley oaks for development and only having to plant like a 15-gallon tree. And so we were trying to find a way to taking these steps, you know, and nothing's perfect, like we have to kind of it's a reiterative process, and it's good to, again, hear feedback through the public comments through the commission too, of what else, you know, do we need to kind of consider.
Do you think that the sense of urgency that we do on decarbonization, how do, I see it as a mismatch between the emphasis on removing carbon emissions with timeframes and then the replacement time that it takes to do trees. And there's, I mean, the trees take a long time to grow.
Well, they don't always come back in, like, look at.
Right, well,
Willow
that's the other
101.
part, that's the other part.
I mean, I'm not bringing this up for you, but like, there's a lot of agita about Willow and 101, and there was replacement. You know, so it's quality of life, it's health impact. To residents, it's not about the dollar value of the tree. It's about all these other things that don't seem to be part of the strategy. They're addressed project by project maybe, but not part of the strategy.
And the reason why I was talking about the carbon is that maybe we can piggyback on the urgency of one side to say, look, the other one is equally urgent and we have to do both.
All right, well, thank you, everyone, for your comments. I guess at this point, are there any actions we want to take here, any motions we want to make, or is there any other discussion that needs to be had? Because you guys don't need any decisions from us, is that correct? No, okay. Because my action items that I'm taking, and I know this is less formal, but like, let's all, you know, share information on Nextdoor and Facebook and any other social media about how to get trees planted or taken care of in your neighborhoods. And I also think there's an opportunity for us to speak up about getting the $250,000 actually approved in the budget. That's happening next Tuesday. So I don't know if we want to maybe make a motion about that as an EQC so that we can speak formally as a commission to encourage the approval of that. Or we can do that all as individuals.
Recommend we do both, because we kind of did both for the making it a tier 1 priority, and then so you did the letter and I showed up and kind of sat there with my arms crossed.
Would you like to make a motion?
So I would totally move that we do a hybrid of a formal request from the EQC and for those who are willing to show up and do your 3 minutes of, you know, public comment.
I would totally second that.
Okay.
The other thing that I would ask is, based on the follow-up for how that let's assume that happens, the 250K, then the follow-up kind of road mapping process for what happens with that money. How do we strategize around the grants? I don't know if that's a follow-up discussion with some of this group, but post the canopy meeting in mid-July, hopefully a roadmap will emerge from that that we can bring back to this group and talk about. Because I feel like staying on it and staying focused on how that urban forest master plan actually gets created is going to be important.
Do you think that's a like ad hoc subcommittee need that we might want to form as a result of this?
I don't know. I'm gonna be at that, without a subcommittee, how many of us could be at that meeting?
Maybe we could still be there. And again, we're
Trying not to have so many subcommittees.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, okay, so maybe, you go to the meeting and then you can give an update at the next EQC following that.
I'm cool with that. I.
And we'll just keep it as a regular
Yeah,
topic.
the request is just to stay focused and make sure it gets across the finish line.
Okay, yes.
I do have a question for you. Is there anything that we can do for move forward your goals? And in addition to private citizens, I mean, I have a list of private citizen things I can do, but
There was a slide about the resources, if that could be spread around, that'd be really appreciated. Since those are the common questions that we get. But other than that, I think.
Sharing information about our city's tree planting program, and as I mentioned previously, we did release a digest about post-storm recovery. And it did contain some information about how residents can have their own private trees inspected and worked on to make sure that they're safe and resilient for the next wave of storms. That could be also important to share with people.
Is the link to the digest in the presentation or
We could send it to Rebecca and then she could send the group.
would you be okay if we shared the presentation with CRC and the Bellhaven, the presentation? you
Yeah.
It's
gave?
public,
yeah.
so feel free to
But doesn't mean people go and get it, but we could say, hey, please
look at
pay
this.
attention to this.
All right, so I think there was a motion on the floor. Ms. Lucky, could you restate the motion for us? Or would you like me to restate it? I can restate
Can you
it.
make up?
I'd be happy to restate it, if that would be helpful. So I heard a motion that the EQC formally, that the EQC make a statement, to city council to,
support.
yeah, to support the $250,000 tier 1 priority for the urban forest master plan. Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Okay. First, second. Vote.
Yes, all in favor, with your hands. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Rock on. All right.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, so, thank you. Feel free to go home, enjoy your evening.
Thanks.
All right, so moving on to, item D3, which is another meaty and very exciting topic.
Oh, can we take maybe 5 minutes?
Yes, let us take a 5-minute break. Let us all reconvene at, 7:43.
5 minutes.
Just as a reminder in the room, the owl is not yet unmuted. So whenever you're ready.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're on to topic D3, which is also very exciting. Consider and advise on possible programs to expend $4.5 million in state funds for community-wide electrification projects. And as we kick this off, I just want to start by saying I'm so thrilled that we're here, and I want to say thank you to Menlo Spark and everyone who's been involved in this for initially applying for the funds from the state on behalf of our community. Helping make homes in Belhaven more safe and comfortable through electrification is a really important step in addressing environmental justice issues in our community. So Ms. Lucky, our sustainability manager, has a presentation, and then like the last time, we'll have an opportunity for clarifying questions, public comment, and then EQC discussion and advice. So take it away.
Thank you, Chair Headley. So, and thank you. This is an exciting opportunity. I know you've been waiting a long time to discuss this topic, and it's an awesome opportunity. And so I've got a very short presentation because I know there's going to be a lot of discussion around this. But I do want to give a little bit of background. As Chair Headley mentioned, Menlo Spark was a huge driver in securing funding from the state. The original request was for 4.2 million from Senator Josh Becker's office, and it was looking at electrifying homes in the Belhaven neighborhood, approximately 200 homes, and ultimately Senator Becker was very generous, gave us 4.5 million and allocated it to the city of Menlo Park for a community-wide electrification project. And that all happened last year. So Menlo Spark again was asking for this money probably the last 2 years. And we received a big check in November, and it was presented to the city council by Senator Josh Becker. So the state did designate the California Energy Commission as the agency to really pass through the $4.5 million. And so there was quite, because it's so unique and it's slightly different than other grants that the California Energy Commission usually administers. They were trying to understand their own process and kind of what does that look like. And so they did notify us in March that they had received the funds and were kind of going through their checkpoints and understanding like, how does that happen? Do they need to go to the California Energy Commission board, or can they do it internally? And so we were pleased to hear that they were able to kind of develop a draft agreement that could be approved at the staff level at the California Energy Commission, and that we would sign the agreement. And their process is that we would receive the first half of the funds, 2.25 million. And after, we've made some progress on the projects that we're doing, we could submit a progress report, and then we could submit a request for the remaining amount of the funding. The funds do need to be expended by June 30th of 2026. So it's pretty quick. And the California Energy Commission is working on agreements. So they emailed today, they're going through all of their checkpoints in their offices to get us the agreement to sign. So it takes them about 4 to 6 weeks. So once we get an agreement, it then takes about 45 days for them to get a check in our hand. So again, it goes through their internal processes, just to give you a sense of the timeline there. And the agenda item did include the high level draft agreement. You'll note that in there, it doesn't really, specify any kind of scope of work. And so there's a bit of flexibility on kind of defining that a little bit more through the public decision-making process. We received quite a bit of feedback about, the funds and Menlo Spark. So staff had conversations with Menlo Spark. They're advocating that the funds be used for low-income residents in the Belhaven neighborhood, particularly for space heating, so that there is the ability to most heat pumps, space heating heat pumps include air conditioning. So that's this added, appliance that you would normally not get if you were converting your gas furnace to another gas furnace. And so that is extremely helpful in adapting to climate change and extreme heat events. And so Menlo Spark is really kind of wanting to see that service provided to low income residents. We've also have our building decarbonization ad hoc subcommittee. So currently Commissioner Evans and Commissioner McKenna are on the subcommittee. And had conversations about looking at workforce development so that we can create high quality jobs in Menlo Park and lift residents out of poverty. And also there's been, part of this funding is looking at, it's a lot of money and it's a pretty robust program. It's likely that the city would need to hire a program implementer or administrator to electrify buildings. And so we had staff had initial conversations with Peninsula Clean Energy staff. They do have a program called Home Upgrade, where they work with residents who have qualifying incomes and provide minor home repairs. I'm going to go into that in a couple of other slides, and even leveraging some of their existing programs. They have quite a few. So for tonight, what staff is seeking from the Environmental Quality Commission as a consideration to advise City Council is, what programs should we explore? And what are your initial thoughts on whole home electrification for low income residents, solar and battery installation to reduce utility bill costs and resiliency? And I'll go into that a little bit later in some of the slides, but looking at kind of what the current incentive landscape looks like and where we could potentially get the biggest bang for the buck, again, given with what incentives are currently available. And then local workforce training to complete electrification projects. Perhaps maybe looking at an electrification readiness program in light of the recent BACMID ruling, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District ruling that they're going to prohibit the sale of gas-fired equipment starting in 2027. So how do we prepare the community for that transition is a possible program as well. So as I mentioned, the city would likely need to partner or hire or contract with an administrator to implement the programs. And possible options for that include developing a request for proposals. So the city would release a request for proposal to find a feasible administrator for the scope of work that we decide on. Or we could partner with Peninsula Clean Energy to implement the programs within their existing program framework. Or we can explore selecting an administrator or program implementer using a recent local government RFP process, kind of known as piggybacking. Usually kind of within a year, if there's a similar provider that's providing the same service for another city or local government, we could kind of expedite instead of going through the whole RFP process and hire a contractor. But of course, that would need city attorney review, and again, the city council would need to be willing to explore that. So I'm going to go through a few of Peninsula Clean Energy's programs just to give you a flavor of what they're offering, and then you can kind of think about what that could look like with $4.5 million added to some of these programs, or whatever amount of money added to these programs. So PCE, they're in their first phase of home upgrade, and they allocated $3.5 million already to provide no-cost home repairs for up to 300 low-income single-family homes in San Mateo County. And the upgrades focus on critical home needs for low-income single-family residents. So it includes energy efficiency measures, if there's a broken door, roof repairs, ADA upgrades, and other minor repairs. Typically, it includes at least one electrification measure, such as installing a heat pump, water heater, electric stove, or a dryer. And they are looking toward the future of what does a phase 2 look like. So they're looking to expand the program and its offerings. So it may include solar and battery installation on some homes. They're looking at kind of piloting whole home electrification for 4 to 5 homes in San Mateo County, and then maybe ramping up to 150 to 250 whole home electrification projects per year, starting in 2024. And I think they're still working on defining what whole home electrification counts as. Does it mean like, you do a heat pump water heater in one home and a heat pump space heating system in another home, and then all kinds of adds up to one home, as defining the 150 to 250. So that's still in flux, and they're developing kind of the parameters around that. They are planning on issuing a RFP to ramp up that program. Their current contractor is RHA, I believe. And so obviously it's going to get very busy. It's more, the scope of work for these homes is increasing. So they're looking to expand kind of their menu of options of contractors that can do the work. I do have an additional slide if you're interested in looking at the rebates that PC offers for all income levels, but thought it'd be good just to kind of center ourselves on what does it cost to electrify, and the landscape for rebates is changing from month to month. It's hard to keep up. There's tech incentives, there's tax incentives.
Yeah.
And so in conversations with Peninsula Clean Energy staff, we were looking at, okay, let's think about 2024, like what does that landscape look like? And how much would it be to electrify an entire home? And so right now, PC is estimating to electrify a single family home, it costs anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000. And so with all the incentives available for those who make more than 250,000, they would be paying 16,000, so almost half of what the total cost is. So they get half that cost in incentives. For everybody else, to electrify your whole home, you'd be paying about $8,000. And so it's kind of broken down per appliance. For heat pump water heater conversion, so gas to heat pump water heaters, for all income levels with the current or with the 2024 tax rebates or tax credits, it's pretty much coming out to zero. Again, for single family homes, there's different cases where it might need more, but in general, 2024 is a great year to get a heat pump water heater so if anything from this presentation, like that's the thing. And then our next appliance is heat pump space heating. So typically the cost to transition a gas furnace to a heat pump, which again includes a new appliance, an air conditioner, is about $19,000. So with rebates and tax credits for the higher income, they'd be paying $12,500. For everyone else, it's $4,500, which is still a very good deal.
You need to recognize that the tax credit is total per year. So if you're doing both, you only get $1,000 each.
Exactly. Yes, that's a great point. Yes, so you can only do one appliance at a time.
We can do two, but you get
Right.
$1,000 each or
Right.
2,000 for one. But it's the good news is it comes every year.
Mhm.
So you're gonna stage it.
So for an induction cooktop, so transitioning from a gas to an electric induction cooktop, it's about $2,500 without any incentives. There are no incentives for high income earners, but for everyone else, you could get an induction cooktop and pay $1,600 with the current rebates available. There are no rebates available for electric dryers, and they cost about $1,750. And for, if any of kind of these projects require a panel or electric service upgrade, it's typically around $3,500 to $4,000. Their PCE does offer an incentive of $1,500, so that drops down the price for a panel upgrade to $2,600, $2,700. I did include pool heating because, as we all know, pool heating is like heating a home. And there are no incentives to transition gas, natural gas pool heating equipment to electric. But Bayren seems to be offering at least $1,500 for multifamily properties that have pools. So for battery storage, typically the cost to install this piece of equipment is $12,000. For all income levels, you can receive $3,000 in rebates, so that drops it down to $9,000. For those in the low income categories, they could pay as little as $1,800 for a battery storage system. Or nothing if you live in an area where you experience a lot of power outage events. Or again, our low income. And for solar, it's $20,000 without any rebates. for all income levels, that price can drop to 14,000 with the federal tax credit. And as I think we've had a few conversations in our meetings, that solar is a extremely motivating factor for people to electrify all their devices because they want to maximize that energy that they're producing. So some of the next steps for the funding is to receive feedback and potentially advice from the Environmental Quality Commission. And there's an item going very soon to the city council to allow the city manager to accept funds from the California Energy Commission. So at least we have that going while we're sorting out the scope of work. And so the city council does need to take the time to figure out, how do we want to, find a program implementer, exactly how much do you want to divvy up these funds for certain programs like workforce development or low income home electrification. And so once we get that direction from city council, we can start to implement that direction, whether it's a partnership with Peninsula Clean Energy or releasing an RFP process or finding another agency that has a contractor that's currently implementing a similar program that we're seeking to implement. So as I mentioned, a progress report would need to go back to the California Energy Commission. 18 months is not a hard number. It could be sooner, it could be later. They do need at some point kind of to know what we're doing with the funds. And again, we just need to expend those funds by June 30th, 2026. So potential discussion questions for the commission is feedback on the potential programs discussed. Are there any programs you'd like to see added? Any other questions I can field as well? And I also want to acknowledge that Alexandria from Peninsula Clean Energy is here. So if there are any questions about home upgrade, she is the guru on all that is home upgrade. And we also have TRC, who's a technical advisor for Peninsula Clean Energy as well. If you have questions about cost or rebates that are offered, they help put that information together for us.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Lucky, for the presentation. And I'm glad that we have so many resourceful, wise, experienced people here helping us make these decisions. So are there any clarifying questions from the commission before we open it up to public comment?
Just
Go
to,
here. Go ahead.
I wanted to make sure I heard that right. Is this earmarked only for District 1?
That was Menlo Sparks' recommendation, but it isn't the
But
requirement.
what's the, okay, so it could be for the, well, what's the state saying? What are the people giving us the money saying?
They're saying it's up to us to define the scope. So the way it's currently written in the legislation that was approved by the state is 4.5 million is to be allocated to the city of Menlo Park for a citywide electrification project.
Wow, okay.
Wow.
So we have some stuff to say there. Let's go to Ms. Evans and then.
Can I? Yeah. And I do have a clarifying question. Thank you, Rebecca, for your presentation. Yeah, there's sort of a difference between what the state wrote in sort of a generalized way in their actual grant than what the intention was with Senator Becker and Menlo Spark. The intention was for it to go entirely to low-income electrification. And the discussions all along have been focused on District 1, even though there are certainly some low-income folks who live outside of District 1, but to focus on District 1. But I sense that we will probably talk about that. And my clarifying question was, there was one bullet on there that talked about the possibility of including an electrification readiness program. And I just wanted to understand the intention behind that. Is that there would be some additional funds set aside that would go beyond 200-ish homes that are getting whole home or close to whole home electrification, and that it would ready additional homes? Was that the thinking behind that bullet?
There was no so there wasn't any kind of thought on how to divvy up the funds for each of those programs.
Yeah.
It was just kind of thoughts as we move forward and thinking about potential rules for existing buildings. And again, trying to support the Bay Area Air
Yeah.
Quality Management Districts, because Commissioner Cabot talking about like how can, cities support that? How can we get ready? Because the BACMID is going to look in a few years, or is everybody ready to transition? So it's very open-ended. We're not, led to any of those ideas.
Thank you, got it.
All right, and then I believe you had a.
Yeah, again, just as a clarification point, so there was something about the first batch of money shows up once we have an agreement. For the agreement, what's in the agreement? What do we have to decide? Are there any details on the agreement, or is just
So
we get the money and we run?
yeah, essentially, the agreement that was attached to the agenda item is kind of what will be likely what the final agreement looks like. The names might change, but that's their template that they're working from.
But we don't have to decide about any of the decisions about what to do with the money can come after the agreement.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Great. Any other clarifying questions? Yes,
Just, I didn't see it in here, but who manages, is that gonna all be managed by you once it all, not you, but like the department, or who owns the money inside the city and is gonna provide oversight to the contractor? That,
Yeah, so it would be Sustainability Division City Manager's Office, the partnership there and keeping track of what's being completed, reporting progress to the California Energy Commission,
got it.
making sure we're in compliance with any of the kind of template language that they have.
So it is, even though the grant's open, it's restricted to, I don't know what they call it, like your department, or, I mean, it's not
For
open.
citywide electrification, yeah.
So it could go into different departments.
Well, but I think it's also, I mean, I think there's multiple pieces. I think there's also an open question as to who will actually, and that's for us to discuss, who will actually administer the funds, whether the funds sit with the city and the city then may have to do an RFP to find an administrator. Versus PCE overseeing the contractors and having it go through their existing programs.
Oh, I didn't. even
I think
about that.
that's what you were asking.
I was wondering if the money would have to be split between multiple city departments, which makes it harder to manage versus rolling
no.
after one department. I wasn't even talking about program administration. I was thinking more like funding administration. So, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
I see. Okay.
The funding is budgeted in the city manager's office, and the terms of the agreement do have like accounting standards we have to abide by. So that would be on the city to ensure that the money's in the city manager's office. Ensures it's acted for.
Okay.
all right. Well, if there are no other clarifying questions, let's go to public comment. Ms. Lucky, would you? Oh, sorry, I caught you at a bad time. I see. Would you like me to call for it? I see former chair Tom Cabot ready to say something. Thank you for being here, Tom.
Thank you so much. I'm Tom Cabot, Menlo Park resident. For full disclosure, I also volunteer some with Menlo Spark and also with sunwork.org, helping pursue good works, the kinds mentioned in this proposal. Clearly, we're in a climate emergency. Things are getting worse, and we need to figure out how to move rapidly. And we have to try new things in moving rapidly. So this grant looks like an opportunity to do that, and for the city to look at not reinventing a wheel if PCE has already invented that wheel and has a building electrification program going, albeit the prior program was really only requiring a minimum of one electrification measure per house. I'm sure the city could partner with PCE to have them effectively administer the money more rapidly than we'd be able to scale up. And there's a reason, I'll get to that in a moment, but also to just change the stipulations to say 2 or 3, minimum of 2 or 3 electrification projects per home. And you could even say including heat pump, water heater, and heat pump space conditioning so that residents get that cooling. So we do need to be creative. PCE offers a chance for us to do that. And PCE is something that the city helped form. They're the joint powers agency that has the same powers that the city has, but they now have more experience in administering these kinds of retrofit programs. So my recommendation to get going quickly would be to partner with PCE and have them administer the money through an enhanced electrification program. The reason to do it quickly is I'm afraid while the federal IRA tax credits will last the full 10 years because they keep getting replenished under the law, the federal IRA upfront rebates have a fixed budget amount per state. In California, I believe it's on the order of $660 million, which when I divide by the state population, that's $20 per resident. So that is not going to go very far. It will not hit very many homes. It will be done early in the 10 years, maybe the first year, maybe the second. So it makes sense to work with PCE to get a program on the ground running so that we can assist our community while that little land rush is on. And then other programs will follow it, but that one will be out. So anyway, I'm really glad that the city and the commission is looking at how to do this quickly and effectively. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Tom, it's good to hear from you. Is there any other public comment? Ms. Lucky?
So at this time, if there are any members who are attending remotely or in the room that would like to make public comment, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen or next to your name, I'll be able to unmute you. Our next speaker is Pam Jones.
Good evening again, and thank you. I just wanted to ask that there is a strong, knowledgeable person that works with residents. Doesn't matter in the city where they live, but works with residents to understand and maybe even to coordinate the electrification, because there's a lot of moving parts to it. And I know personally it overwhelms me. And so I assume that it would overwhelm other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Any other public comment?
Last call for public comment.
All right. All right, thank you. So now it's time to do the EQC discussion, and I'd like again to give a chance for everyone to share. I personally would love to hear first from our building decarbonization subcommittee members, because I know you've been thinking a lot about this. So maybe we could start with the two of you and then continue on to others.
Okay. Ready first? Wanna
Go for it.
go? Okay. Well, first I want to say thank you to Rebecca specifically. Your presentation was great. And I also know that once upon a time, when we all heard that we were going to receive these funds, Menlo Spark and other entities thought that we could develop a sort of separate special purpose entity, if you will, that would be outside the city, and that we could do transactions in and out. And that didn't get set up in time. The state sort of said, we need to know where this is going right away. And so it landed with you. And I know that that work stream wasn't anticipated. And so I just want to say thank you. This added to your plate. Hopefully it's, it's for good cause, but I realize that you've done, some work here. So acknowledging that. I'll start with my three top ones. I may, because otherwise I'll talk too long. So I can, as we go around Robin, could we circle back? Can I do my top three now? Would that be all right? Okay. So my first is I concur with Tom Cabot's comment. I strongly prefer what I think was option 2 on slide 6, that we partner with PCE as the administrator of the funds, as opposed to going out for RFP at the city level and developing a new process to develop these funds. It just makes a lot of sense to me for so many reasons. One, reducing staff burden. 2, leveraging existing systems that have already been underway and are being perfected or being done right now, rather than reinventing the wheel. And then 3, what Tom was talking about with the IRA funds is that, just to understand that a little bit better, is that my understanding is that PCE is hopefully about to receive directly a large chunk of these IRA funds. And assuming that that works, I think what Tom was also alluding to is that Having the fund sit with PCE would enable residents to, it would be one less application, like they could get the tax credits faster, more readily, because PCE would already be holding those funds, rather than having to do like an application per home, if that makes sense. And so that speeds it up and also makes it more likely that they can in fact receive those funds. And I think it's like up to $14,000 per home from IRA, so it's a non-negligible amount. So that was my first point is, I would strongly encourage us to have this go through PCE. The second one is I would love, and I think Menlo Spark has been advocating for this. I would love to see some type of quick start grant, whether the money lands with PCE or the city. Maybe it's 250,000, we can debate that, but funds that could be kind of released early without an RFP in the spirit of trying to get some high need residents, maybe elderly folks at risk of heat stroke, their HVAC cooling as soon as we can, maybe even if things move quickly before the inevitable heat waves in the fall. And so I'd love to see that quick start piece before everything else. And then my third one for now is I certainly am a big fan of solar and batteries. I would love each home to have all the bells and whistles. I think that until we have more funds available, I would say, let's see if Menlo Spark and others can fundraise additional funds to support those costs. And it's because if we incorporate solar and battery into the budget per home, I think it cuts the number of homes that we can reach in half. And I think that there's two ways to sort of remedy it. One is, I mean, I think the idea between solar is, well, one of the big ideas of solar is it reduces utility costs for residents. But my understanding is that some of the budgets put forward by Menlo Spark have included the highest efficiency equipment for the HVAC, such that, sure, in the summer, your bill will go up if you didn't have air conditioning before, and now you do, right? Because your baseline was 0 before. But that the overall efficiency of the furnace increases so much that it, hopefully offsets. And over the course of the year, your utility costs hopefully stay neutral. And I think that's the thinking right now. So in lieu of doing the solar and batteries, prioritizing that highest efficiency equipment to make sure that residents' utility bills don't go up. Now, I will say this, like, we can't promise that they won't go up because in people's homes, someone could leave the AC going and then leave for the weekend, and we can't control that. But I think there's ways that with the highest efficiency equipment, we can give reasonable assurance that if they're using it in this way, their utility bills are likely to stay more or less constant, or maybe even decrease. And then 2, I provided a bunch of information to Ori. Ori, thank you if you're listening for asking for that a couple of weeks ago about portable resilience packages. We recommend that the library have some on rotation for everyday residents, but our thinking too was that maybe there could be a bundle of portable resilience options, like a portable battery with portable solar panels to support multi-day outages, little mini fridges, fans, little heaters, lights that can all be plugged into these systems. And they have multi-plugs so that neighbors can come over and charge their phones, and that those be part of the budget per home. It's like, my proposal was roughly, 1,000 or less for that. And that provides certainly not as much resilience as wall batteries, which are really expensive, but some amount of meaningful resistance, and that those homeowners could keep those products in perpetuity. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you for kicking us off. I
Okay.
appreciate your depth of knowledge here.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Commissioner McKenna, do you want to add to that?
Sure, yeah. I echo and agree with everything that Commissioner Evans stated, and I would just add a few more things that based on the feedback that we're looking for, we would definitely want the whole home electrification projects to go to low-income residents. But we want to make sure that the Belhaven community is the priority in looking at where that money goes. Also wanted to add that There's been a concept of taking some of this money and using it to develop a workforce. And Commissioner Evans has put some numbers together. We can talk about that in more detail, but we do think it would be great for the community and great for the program to use some of that money towards workforce development, potentially with someone like Job Train, who's in our community, in the Belhaven community, and ideally work with them. But if for some reason there's money allocated towards a workforce development and that program just doesn't come together, we would want to make sure that all that money goes back to the home electrification costs that would be part of the program. And then there was, did you talk about the electrification readiness?
I did not.
Yeah, so while the BACMed ruling does present a potential requirement to convert gas appliances to electric when they expire, the BACMed ruling isn't for sure. Like, they have to go through an implementation working group to make sure that the communities are ready. And we would love to see the money from this source go towards actual electrification, not just readiness for electrification. And, you know, down the road, if we get more money, that would be great to use it towards that as well to make.
What's the difference between readiness and actual electrification?
Well, I guess Rebecca could talk about that in details, what she had in mind, but to me, it's, you know, getting circuits in place or upgrading your panel or what you might need to do if and when you have to replace a gas appliance with an electric.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, there's some other things we can discuss, but I'll leave it there for now.
Okay. Are you guys supportive of the electrification readiness if it's coincides with, you know, replacing the water heater and the
Yes.
HVAC? Okay, but just not by itself, if you're not actually electrifying anything.
Right.
I mean, I think given that the funds are still limited, the 4.5 seems like a lot, and in many ways it is, but if it can only reach 200-ish homes, we'd rather it go to actual replacement of gas-powered appliances that pollute inside the homes, rather than provide readiness. Readiness is valuable and important, but hoping that the money can be, at this time, until we get more, fingers crossed, prioritized for actual swapping out of old polluting appliances for healthier, smarter ones.
It makes me wonder, you know, I know Tom's talked a lot about the low watt diet. Is that something we might want to include in this so that we don't have to do the panel upgrades?
Sure.
Well, PCE has, I mean, they just in the last few months put a whole presentation together that essentially is Tom Cabot's Watt Diet that talks about all the ways that you can be creative and efficient to choose the right appliance for the space and use circuit shares. And so I believe that they are actively trying to get the word out and educate contractors. I'd be curious, just like to hear how that's been incorporated, but I think that concept that like the average single family home actually does not have to upgrade its panel if the electrification is done efficiently and appropriately. There's always gonna be exceptions, but the mainstream thinking now is shifting away from upgrade these expensive panels to most of the time you don't have to if you educate yourself about how to do it right.
Thank you. All right. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, on those guidelines, which are on our website, they were posted.
I just want to ask if they can hear you.
Oh,
You can sit up here too.
Yeah. Do you want to come join us? Tell us your name again. Alejandra. All right, Alejandra from PCE is sharing, and I promise we'll get back to everybody else too for comments. And before you speak, hey, Ori, I'm wondering if you're kind of capturing the things that seem like they're beginning. Oh, you are? Okay, like consensus-y stuff?
Yes.
So that we can make a motion at some point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Please.
Alejandra Posada, I'm an associate program manager at Peninsula Clean Energy. I work on our residential incentive programs for the vanilla strategic program. So oversee our home upgrade program and also rebates and our loan program. So on the technical guidelines, we do have another team member that primarily leads our technical development of like guidelines and all of that. But that was posted a couple months ago. At this point, we're not like doing a lot of outreach to share that with contractors, and the main way that we're trying to put those in action is really through our home upgrade program, because we have a lot more direct control over the quality of the contractors, and also in ensuring that they do it in the correct ways. So right now, through our home upgrade program, as Rebecca mentioned, we are this year piloting 4 to 6 homes for a whole home electrification throughout San Mateo County. And at least 3 of those homes will be done like fully electrified under 100 amps. So it'll be actually, using the guidelines to electrify homes us directly, as opposed to just, letting other contractors know. Because largely our market-based programs, like our rebates and our lead programs, they don't really have any contractor requirements. So there's not like a strong endorsement on PC's part on who, a customer should be working with in terms of the contractor. Is really kind of open. And there's particular contractor lists like Bayer and places like that where customers can go as a starting point, but it's really kind of open to anyone. So our home upgrade program is kind of our most direct installation pathway where we, control that more.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so back to Commissioner Comment, who would like to go next? Comments, questions?
I'll take it, just since I was the last one. I don't understand, I'm new, right? So I haven't looked at this 100% on focusing on District 1. I don't understand how much of the solutions that are applicable to me as a homeowner apply to this situation in District 1. I mean, I don't know how do some of these programs apply to renters or to people in apartments. So I would love to understand that better, right? So we're doing a program for replacing gas-based water heaters with 120 based heat pump water heaters. I mean, that's great, but does that actually work? If the heat pump, the water heater is actually owned by the landlord, will it do it? I mean, that type of dynamic, I don't understand how that works. So from me, the top priority should be District 1, low income, whatever we can do in there. When I was hearing the presentation, I was captured by the idea of addressing the workforce, because I think that could help longer term and also shorter term, get good feeling from the community. On the other hand, the argument about getting something done right now is compelling, but I guess I would start by anything that we put on the table, will it work for the dynamic in District 1? I don't know. I assume that we know some of that, but I actually don't. Because as a homeowner, there are a bunch of things that I can do, but I'm the homeowner, right?
Yeah, does anyone know the answer to that, or is that for us to make some recommendations around?
Like what percentage of people in Bellhaven or District 1 are renters versus homeowners? Is that?
And also single residents with that they can actually do something as opposed to having, because there's quite a number of complications on an apartment building. I mean, right.
Does PCE have any data on that?
We don't have any data like to that level,
Okay.
specificity. I know we like.
Good, I mean, through census information, I think we're able to get it by district. I don't have that off my fingertips right now.
Does the PCE rebate apply to property owners of multifamily
So,
rental properties?
our home upgrade program, which is largely what's been talked about today, because that's the direct install program, that only serves homeowners. Since PC is paying for the entire, project cost, it's only for homeowners. Our rebate program, the applicant has to be the homeowner, but it is open. So if like a property owner, landlord wanted to install one of these equipment in a tenant's home, they could apply for it, yes.
Okay,
But it have to
they
be a
wouldn't
property owner.
preclude it though.
Yeah, but I
They
don't
wouldn't
know.
be precluded just because they're not a non-resident owner.
No, as long as like, yeah.
But I don't know
it's
what
a property,
incentive
it's in
the landlord will have. See, if the bill is actually, the utility is paid by the.
Heat pump's essentially free, right? So.
Yeah, but the renter pays for the bill.
Hmm.
The utility bill, right?
I mean,
So that's what I meant.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think the intention was for this to go to homeowners, to single family homes. Again, it's a large sum of money in many ways, but in other ways, it's not gonna reach all of Bellhaven. And in fact, we're hoping that once we see some successful implementation at scale, although there is a press release going out tomorrow about the first 2 homes done in Bellhaven, but that's a separate conversation. Not with this money, but separately, could Menlo Spark and Partners fundraise additional money to reach the rest of Bellhaven, single family homes, multifamily? I don't think
Got
this
it.
money is necessarily precluded from serving multifamily. I think PCE is largely set up to support single family at this point.
Right.
We're also working on a potential pilot of the electrification of a couple of properties by the Mid Peninsula nonprofit at Willow Court and Willow Terrace. I don't believe that early conversations with council seem to indicate that, I mean, council can speak for itself, and I'm sure this may come up when it comes before council, that they wanted the funds to really pay for homeowners to do this.
Great, that's helpful to understand the intent because it could, it's nice to
Yeah.
have a focus.
Yeah.
All right, great. Maybe I'll go, so you can log it sounds like working with PCE through this would be like the fastest way to get the money out the door and you already have experience and I'm like, let's not create the wheel. I like the idea of the quick start program to get some cooling measures into people's homes before the heat waves hit. I like the idea of the workforce development piece and with the intention of low income electrification with a focus on Bellhaven. I also like the idea of encouraging the high efficiency equipment so that we don't have to do the panel upgrades and all of that. And I do like the portable resilience options. I think especially for people who have like medical necessity, I would say for sure, like make sure we get those people, those resources. Yeah, I think, I had a question. In terms of the rebates, if people aren't paying any money, I'm assuming they don't get the rebates. I'm assuming like, does the rebate go back into the pot that would help other people electrify or how would that work?
What do you mean people aren't paying any money?
So if someone applies and they are part of the low income electrification program, I'm assuming they're not paying any money out of pocket, like someone else is coming in and just doing all the things.
That's right.
So there's no reason they would get a rebate because they haven't had any out of pocket costs.
That's.
Is that correct?
Well, I think the thinking like with the heat pump water heaters being at 0, that is after rebates. So there still is some upfront cost. capital
People
cost.
would need to, individuals,
Well,
or
but
is it
in
more?
this case, it wouldn't be the homeowners, it would be the program paying for it.
Right.
So nobody in Bellhaven is putting any money for
Right,
it.
good.
This is completely paid for.
But then does the rebate, do we apply to the rebate and then it goes back into the program? Or the city or?
I mean, that
somewhere,
would be,
or
I think
just-
that would be for the administrator to figure out and manage the flow of those funds back and forth. Go ahead.
Yeah, just say, for example, I had a heat pump water heater replacement job done recently, and the cost to me was $0 because of the rebate. So the contractor applied for the rebates, and so essentially it would just be that much less money that would have to come out of the 4.5, and you would just be able to electrify that many more homes because the actual cost after the rebates is so much lower. So the
Got it.
rebate still is involved and
Yeah.
utilized.
Even if PCE administers the whole thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
So one question for PCE, the rebate budget that exists today that's providing the heat pump, water heater, and heat pump HVAC. Do you suspect that will last for the duration of this program? Or is it gonna run out of funding?
Yeah, that will last, but the rebate amounts may change, but it will last, yeah.
Because to that point, I mean, I think if we're talking about whole home electrification, essentially the PCE rebate and Bayren rebate covers the cost of the heat pumps. Now we're talking about using these dollars for heat pump HVAC, which gets the AC, which we talked about as important. So I think when we talk about economically modeling how many homes we can do, if we believe that PCE financing for heat pump water heaters is there. We should just assume that's gonna fund the hot water heater. And this 4.5 million, the portion of it that we do to whole home is going to go for the HVAC.
I really like the idea of doing something for elderly and these people are at risk. I think that that's going to do good, but it's also going to create very goodwill in the community, and they'll talk about it, and that will feed itself.
Great. All right, who have we not heard from? Maybe Commissioner Lynn, do you have anything you want to add?
Nothing in particular. I think I would also just echo that we should probably not reinvent the wheel. So that it seems like partnering with PCs if they have experience already with it. As well as I really like the ideas around workforce development and possible portable resilience options. As well, I think I would be in favor of not investing in batteries for like solar panels just because they're really expensive, and I think the tech will get better in the future. So it's probably not a good thing for buck at the current time.
Great, thank you. All right, who have we not heard from? Schmidt, oh, and Kessel, yes, okay.
Go ahead, please. Yeah, so I'm kind of, I think we're all aligning. I'm in support of focusing on Bellhaven. I do support working with job training in particular because, you know, they are local, and so there's double benefit. Focusing on heat pumps and HVAC and not focusing on solar or battery at this time. And portable resilience, I agree, that's a much better cost-effective option at this point than wall power.
Great, thank you.
And one last, also agree that partnering with PCs to administer this as opposed to going out for RFP.
I love it when consensus
Yeah.
is coming around. Okay, Commissioner Schmidt, and then we promised you'd get another
Oh, gosh.
speaking, so
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you have for us?
Three things. One is, I'm agreeing with the District 1, the spirit of the funding, I think is important to honor. I would actually say maybe we could take that a couple steps further and get a little crisper, make sure that's written into the scope of work. We could potentially tie it to the EJ element to send a really strong signal. I think, and explicitly calling that out, because I feel like Bellhaven residents are really starting to feel the possibility of the EJ coming on board. And I know it's not originally tied, but I think we could finesse it a little bit. So that's point number one. Point number two, I feel pretty strongly about a lot of our decisions that we talked about last time, and this feels like a perfect one to make this a numbers and a volume driven process. So to get really targeted. How many houses are there in Bellhaven? How far along the electrification journey are there? You know, without a data-driven process, it becomes a shot in the dark. And then we get 400 homes and we think that's victory when there might be 20,000 homes. So it's less about, it's less about the reach of this amount of money, as you were saying. It's more about how do we quantify it to show a big chunk? Because if it's 20 houses, but 20 houses are electrified, that's not really a victory. It's because, you know, how many houses are in Bellhaven, for example?
Well, there's
Go
like, there's public data on this, and I looked at it a long time ago, maybe over a year, but I want to say, again, public data or public data, so it's not always parsed
Yeah.
exactly how you want it. But I can see if I can provide that at the next meeting. I think it breaks down the number of multifamily versus the number of single family, and then breaks down the multifamily a little bit further, and renters versus non-renters. I want to say, please forgive me if this number is incorrect, but I want to say that the public data said something on the order of, I should say it's in my memory. I want to say there was like 1,200 single family homes.
Yeah.
So this is a percentage of that.
So
Yeah.
the nice thing is, so then as we take the 4.5 and we divide it by the low income rebate dollar amounts, so things like the whole house, that'll get you about 569 houses. The water heater conversions is net neutral. The heat pump space heating with the 4,500, that gets you 1,000 homes. So to say we've covered 1,000 homes out of 1,200, that sends really good signals. So I don't want to belabor that point, but I think the more we can architect the scope of work to be numbers driven and a volume driven process. The other thing that we could do as a tool is a matrix of impact versus the number of houses. So are the heat pumps going to give a high impact on a high number of houses or a low number of houses? And I think we can just use some strategic decision-making tools to help us create the scope of work. And then the third part about that's really related is I feel strongly about focus. Taking a strategic approach to say, how is this part of a roadmap for electrification? Meaning, what's the entry point? How do we coordinate that electrification journey and use this money as a starter kit for residents? Because I really cringed a little bit with the whole home electrification thing, because that feels like 30 homes and it looks really good on those 30 homes, but it doesn't start the residents in that whole district along a pathway. And so focusing in to say, let's have a more singular fix versus a little bit of everything, maybe 3 options instead of 10. My fear is we could spread things along too many dimensions and we don't make progress along a pathway of electrification. So part of it is just a starter kit, getting people used to the idea that they need to go on this journey. And then 2 sort of related points is maybe, with PCE, it's not a fully adopt and go, meaning we take their program and just try to implement it. Maybe we have some flexibility to design something a little bit more like your phase 2 that gets people along a journey. So that's a discussion I would suggest we open up. And then another discussion I would suggest we open up is around workforce development. I'd love that. I mean, that's my old life and old work, but I would say it'd be worth another conversation with Senator Becker's office and Assemblyman Berman's office and talk to Neela, because I know that those conversations were going on in the area. I haven't been attached to them for a while, but it would be good. There may be other buckets of money that we don't need to use this money if Palo Alto and us and other folks are already marching down that path. And I know there were a lot of conversations happening 6 months ago. So before we add workforce in, I would just get a status on where those conversations are.
Well, and actually, I think, I'm sorry, were you done talking?
No, yeah. So all that is in service. No. All that is in service of, I love lots of ideas, but I think if we peanut butter things too much, we're at risk of spreading it too thin. People are not going along on the journey. And I think we can architect as you're focusing, so we can architect more of a journey for people, because then we can find more money to get them further along the path. Anyway, good.
Thank you. On your last point about the workforce development, yes. In fact, we partners and I are actively pursuing additional funds for workforce development, because the draft numbers that I put together, very rough at this point, was just for year 1. And so there is the understanding that we would need more to scale it and continue it. And so I would love for there to be, so I think it's important to get some carved out if we need it, but I would love for there to be a clause that says, if we don't need it, or if sadly it doesn't take off the way we envision, I really hope that doesn't happen, but that the money gets back to home electrification. It doesn't get siphoned off to some other priority.
Yeah, a portion to get us rolling, a small portion to get us rolling.
Yeah.
But knowing that we double down and focus on finding that other, because workforce development money is coming through many other buckets versus the one that we've already earned.
I actually had a thought about that too. The workforce development is like, maybe that could be part of the RFP process. If PCE is looking to add more contractors, maybe the contractors who are in developing the workforce maybe get some priority too.
I mean, that to have those contractors, well, the vision was that we would partner with contractors who could help us design the curriculum and set it up in such a way so that those who graduate from the program and get the necessary certifications for long-term jobs could then hopefully be set up into some sort of subsidized apprenticeships that last for a certain amount of time, that kind of sweetens the deal for those contractors, that to then, assuming the performance is good, hire those folks for long-term, high quality, meaningful jobs with benefits, etc. So we do want to partner with contractors who are aligned with our mission on this.
And just to add to that, it goes a lot beyond the feel good factor, just so everybody's on the same page, is I think a lot of folks like Senator Becker have woken up to the fact that we have all these great intentions, but we don't have a workforce to deliver on
Oh, yeah.
any of it. So not enough electricians, not enough HVAC. So the reason I feel confident that there's more money coming and available is because it's not a Menlo Park problem. It's a
Right.
state of California problem that puts a kibosh on everybody's plans for all this stuff. So I feel like that's why I would want to be smarter about like the clawback for the money or
Yeah.
a little bit of starter money, but not a big chunk of this money, because I feel like there's
I agree.
a bucket.
I mean,
agree.
beyond the low power, the 120 heat pumps,
Yeah.
water heaters, everything else needs a electrician.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that we're talking about needs an electrician.
And the unions are
That's
not.
the bottom line.
All right, let me pause this here. I wanted to check in. I think you had your hand up and then maybe go back to Angela. Yeah.
So building on Jeff's point about data driven, I'm just wondering if Alejandra, PCE has data on the ecological impact of dollars spent, for example, on the energy budget, like so insulation. The one things Tom talked about is how do you reduce your energy demand? And so is $1,000 spent on insulation going to have a bigger carbon offset impact than putting in, you know, a $20,000 HVAC unit? So I just don't know the answer to that, but I'm wondering if PCE or others have done that economic impact. So if we're thinking about the budget, we might say, let's make sure every single house gets, you know, insulation done. And then let's take the rest and put in heat pump, HVAC, or, you know, if that's the case. I just don't know the answer.
Yeah, so I would like to just follow up on the focus part, because I 100% agree. And going back to the original proposal for this thing. So there might be two different points here. One is District 1 versus low, and the other one is low income. And there are landowners, property owners in District 1 that are not low income.
Correct.
So, right, so I think that I would love it if we focus on,
Yes.
or at least have a conversation, because my understanding of the origin of this one is to address low income, so for District 1, low income benefit, right? So-
Yeah. So Alejandra, does anybody have any data that says, you know,
We don't,
$1,000 worth of?
yeah, we don't have that data, at least I don't, but I can check with the rest of the team, and I don't know, is Farhad still on interesting? I don't know if you might know the answer to that.
Oh,
Sounds like Tom might, I don't know, because he
Yeah,
was
Tom.
kind of advocating on the energy budget part of it, like being smart about how you're using your
So,
energy.
yeah. I'd like to introduce Farhad.
Great.
Oh.
The TRC, he's a technical consultant. He's helped us with our reach codes when we initially adopted them in 2019. And the technical advice for something energy. Go ahead, Farhad.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for this wonderful discussion. With regards to the question about whether insulation could reduce emissions beyond that of replacing your hardware or your fossil fuel usage. Based on the reach code studies that have been done across the state by various consultants, replacing your hardware is by far the most effective approach to reducing your emissions. You really can't efficiency your way out of eliminating a fossil fuel usage. So you really just need to switch to clean power. If you were to maintain a gas line hookup and having a gas water heater, a gas space heater, the key measure that would get you across the line for emissions really would actually be a battery. But even then, it's so that you can take your emissions to lower, to cleaner sources when the energy sources are provided are cleaner. That's from a statewide grid perspective, not necessarily a Peninsula Clean Energy perspective. So really, it's electrification, not installation for decarbonization purposes.
Thank you.
There will be bill impacts, though. They're all good bill impacts from adding insulation, and that's something that could be considered.
I guess, given this conversation, part of me wonders if we want to maybe include insulation or envelope upgrades so that it is more efficient once they have the electric sources. I remember when I went through my process, I talked to someone from Bay Ren, and that's what they recommended as the first step. Make sure that your house is not leaking, error in and out and then do the next piece.
But that makes me question, like, is there a roadmap that kind of exists? Or a blueprint to, because certain things are super complicated and should happen like as the 5th step of a process. But does something exist as opposed to having to create it? Because like, that's where I think we just get everybody progressing along that roadmap.
Well, so it's interesting. I think, who was mentioning their work with Sunworks? Somebody? Oh, it's Tom. Okay. Like organizations like Sunwork, they have a template that says, you know, these kinds of situations, your furnace is in your garage. There's an electrical panel in the garage, right? So that reduces the cost and complexity. And so maybe that's also, we factor in to say, bang for the buck, you know, we could put it in a house where the installation cost is an extra $5,000 or something, versus doing 2 houses where there's no extra cost of installation. Right, so if you want your dollars to go the furthest and have the biggest ecological impact, maybe what we need to do is to come up with a template, to your point, of what's the map, and the map is if they have, you know, gross insulation, you fix the insulation. If it's good, you don't worry about it. Everybody gets a heat pump hot water heater because, you know, those work and it's costs nobody because we got PCE dollars. Now we talk about the 4.5. Then the next thing is we go after homes that have the right parameters so that the heat pump HVAC makes economic sense. Right, and then you try to get as far as you can with that before you go after the complex homes where you'd have to do a lot of extra work.
I think Angela wants to say something.
Go ahead.
Oh, can we go?
Go for it.
I mean, for the home upgrade program, so correct me if I'm wrong, Alejandra, but they are looking, right now, they do look for certain homes that fit kind of a model.
Okay.
That makes, because they want their dollars to stretch,
Right,
and
good.
so one option for the 4.5 million could be, like, how do we get the more challenging homes to it? Because they're always gonna have a challenge, like, if they're having a challenge to get into the home upgrade program, they're gonna have a challenge. You know, if any rules come into effect, and so
Yeah,
it's
but-
kind of the balance of like, yeah, where can the 4.5 million also kind of really help with the challenging cases as well? Because, yeah,
Well, I
so
guess-
if I go back to that whole home electrification for low income to middle income. You know, going from 30,000, only paying like around 8,000, you know, the dollars are gonna stretch. And again, PC is kind of looking for those easy kind of cases.
So look at the big picture. I mean, what we need is a beginning of a plan, and then this is going to run until 2026 ideally. Right, so we'll learn and then we'll readjust. And the technology will change, the legislature will change. So we probably should not super optimize because things are going to change.
And I probably would advise not to get too into the weeds, because we
Yeah.
still need to have conversations with
Right,
people
right,
in
right.
clean energy
No,
and kind of how this would. We just need some initial finger in the wind.
Right.
Do we partner with PC? Do we do
Yes.
something else?
Okay, good.
What do we?
Let
what are
us
our
bring it
criteria?
to,
Yes.
can you bring up your screen again so we
And
can?
I will
form a
say too, Menlo
recommendation?
Spark, I wish I had it in front of me. Menlo Spark put together a budget. Instead of it being 30,000 per home, it was 20 to 25. And there was a little bit for insulation. And it avoided big ticket numbers like replacing windows, which some people need but are really, really expensive. So it took this reasonable approach. And did some home and safety repairs and a little bit of insulation as needed, but really did focus on the heat pumps, because that's where you're gonna get the utility savings, the carbon pollution reductions, and the health benefits, because now it's not just induction stoves. The new studies have shown that the carbon pollution leaks from those into the home. So, yeah.
All right, can I, thank you, no, this has been really great, I'm so excited about this, but I think we are now at a point where we can probably. Get this into a place where we can make a motion and maybe get home at a reasonable hour. Yeah,
Good.
okay, so Rebecca, would you be willing to tell us what you're hearing?
So potential advice, feedback on moving forward with the 4.5 million in state funding. So taking some bullet points. So I heard no cost whole home electrification for Bellhaven neighborhood and low income. And that would be targeting single family homeowners, a potential quick start program to get heating and cooling in the Bellhaven neighborhood. And then workforce development. For support for partnering with Peninsula Clean Energy to be the program implementer and administrator. And also considering portable batteries for resiliency during power outages. Is that for the Bellhaven neighborhood specifically?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I think any residents that have a need, like a medical need, elderly. But especially Bellhaven. And we were not talking about maybe batteries, but what was the term you used? Resilience.
I called it a portable resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like portable batteries plus portable solar panels and then some.
Yeah, so
things.
another option for the, not this year, but next year. So Senator Becker is also introduced a bill that I'm tracking about requiring all electrical vehicles to provide bi-directional charging, which I think is going to have a huge impact on resilience, and those batteries are much cheaper than anything else. So I mean, we could frame it, I think, and
Oh,
we
I
get
know.
double.
Yeah.
So I think
Can I-
back in the first bullet point, it's low income in Bellhaven.
I was going to suggest that one.
I have a question. What if you have a low income family in District 2 or in the Bayfront neighborhood?
I
Would they be
say-
disqualified?
I would say let's focus. I mean, I'm going with you. Let's
I mean,
take focus.
It depends on what signal we want to send. Do we want to say this is the first part of an environmental justice journey?
Yeah.
It's focused on the district that particularly has been affected by that. You know, I think spreading it across the city dilutes that strong signal quite a bit.
That's the way I would do it too.
You know, and to your point, if this was $25 million, I probably
I
wouldn't
know.
feel that way.
Right.
But
All right, I have another
4.5
question
doesn't
then.
go that far.
So in the EJ presentation last night, they talked about the underserved communities being Bellhaven and Bayfront. So I don't know if we need to make I don't know really what the distinction is between those two, or if it's anything north of 101.
Okay.
Do we want to make a recommendation about this?
Those
Do we
both
just
in-
say District 1?
I think
Both
District one, yeah.
They're both District 1.
I
So I
think
just want us to be really clear about what we're recommending.
Yeah, District
Yeah, so
State
District 1, yeah.
And the piece that's missing up here for me is, I think we're gonna spend a lot of time debating the dimensions of what this plan would look like, whether it's hard homes versus volume of homes. I was leaning on volume, but I could see a value in getting the hard homes done first because they're gonna have a struggle. But I think we need something in here about a blueprint or a plan that contains different dimensions that we debate.
I mean,
If that makes
I
sense.
would,
Sorry, before we look that one, I think we had suggested low income in District.
Yeah,
Just add a low income in front.
right, yeah. No, right before in.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I would almost
Thank you.
rather, I know none of us want this meeting to go slow, I would rather almost hash that out now. Just to give clear guidance. Again, because the funds are limited. I also lean on volume because then we reach as many families as possible with these new heat pump appliances and the health benefits. It also maximizes our reductions in climate pollution. And
Yeah.
It also sends a signal, right? Because like,
Yeah.
let's say we do the hard homes first and it's, I don't know, 25 homes out of 1,200. I mean, how are you gonna feel if you like, oh, good for them, doesn't impact me? And I think I'm leaning toward this idea of we need to get everybody started along this journey as best we can.
Yeah,
And to me, that's why I mentioned volume. I'm not sort of trying
Yeah,
to railroad that through. It's a strategic idea of everybody needs to get on the path.
Yeah,
I mean,
and so also
sorry,
speed, so I would
Yeah.
just say, so I was a hard home, and I can tell you, I did it, and it was hard to find a contractor who would do it. And it took a long time to do, and it was expensive, and I think the people who have that situation are gonna be harder to convince. And if you wanna get the volume, and I agree that volume, both for the people who are served and for the ecological impact, we should go for volume, which means go for the simple.
The
Okay,
story
which
that
one?
makes sense to me, that resonates with me would be high volume. Heat pump, water heater.
Yeah.
That's an easy win. I mean, it's not even an electrician. And then take some at-risk residents, elder residents,
Yes.
and give them a grandma and just give that one, and you get all the grandkids happy with it. They'll run around.
All right, can I encourage us all to focus on the language?
Yeah.
So what we've been talking about, no cost whole home electrification. I wonder, are we backing away from that, the whole home piece?
Yeah.
well.
So electrification for low income
Yeah, I mean, I think could we put in the 1, 2, 3, the third solid bullet, maybe, if you guys support it. Under the partnership with clean energy, going back to Tom Cabot's comment, like right now, Peninsula Clean Energy's home. Low income home program says at least one electric appliance, but if we could change that to say at least 2. With
That
a
sounds great.
priority of there at least has to be a heat pump, water heater, and or heat pump HVAC system, because those two are the ones.
That sounds great.
They're gonna reduce the utility bills and get the biggest climate reductions.
And that's
Yeah.
good too, because the whole home to me implies fewer homes, higher costs,
Right.
lower volume.
Yeah,
It contradicts with what we were just saying, I think, but
Exactly.
2 appliances per home in as many homes as we can.
and I think
Yeah.
that somehow the language ought to reflect that we really want it to be the heat pumps, or at least that's my preference,
Exactly.
because
Yep.
that's the bulk of the climate pollution that's inside our
Yeah.
homes and in our community and in the world, or
Yeah.
from buildings, is from the heat pumps,
Yeah.
the water heater and HVAC.
So Rebecca, I think we're talking also about striking out the first bullet, the whole home part,
Sorry, finish that one.
because that
Yeah.
implies.
Can I double check on the space heater? I mean, I've done the space heater, we did space heating many years ago. That requires additional skills than heat pump water heater is really easy. Space heating, you need to put the external heat pump, right, external unit, you have to have even mini splits are non-zero cost, right? So
Yeah. Well, but we
I
want,
think it's good to do that, but I wouldn't insist to have all houses have both of two.
no, not in this, I see what you're
We
saying.
have
So
it
we have
there, we have both of them.
at least
At
2
least 2.
appliances. So what were you imagining, Angela?
Which are, I mean, you can put an electric stove, but that requires
No, but I think Andrew's
220,
right. I
right?
mean, if you want to get the bang for the buck, those are the 2 devices that are gonna do it.
Yeah, but the second one is significantly more complicated and expensive.
Right, no, but if we pick the homes that are the most straightforward, right, they've got the gas furnace in the garage and they've got their electrical panel in the garage. That's the easiest thing to do.
I mean, I think this is,
Sorry, you're saying that the space heating is easy?
Space
Not
heating for
easy,
a
but we still need to
specific
do it.
targeted house can be easy.
And I think we
It's
also need to do
easier.
it if
Okay,
it's
but this is
easy or
different than what we
not.
were talking about.
It's easy, it's harder than a heat pump hot water heater, but it's easier than a complex, you know. If you have to put in, 5 different mini splits and you have to run the cooling and rerun the electrical.
Okay, so you're suggesting, let's
I'm saying
be
going after-
realistic here,
going
but
after-
specific, right? I mean, for the space heating, so this is somebody that already has a gas heater and is going to replace the gas driven space heater
Correct,
with this.
correct.
I mean, the real benefit is it's gonna provide
don't know how
cooling
they-
in the summer when we have the
Yeah.
extreme heat events.
Yeah.
And that's really
Mm-hmm.
some resiliency that we wanna offer these residents.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I think to that point, can we add space heating / cooling? Because I
Yeah.
think that is really
Yeah, at
important.
that point, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I would say too, like these homeowners are gonna be, this is voluntary, they're opting into this program. And so I think it does make sense to have a requirement that there be at least 2 appliances and maybe we specify water heating and space heating, but it's not that much extra to add an induction stove if some folks want it. And so I would say, while you're in there, if the folks want it, it's easy enough to do induction. But that, I think the administrator can figure that out.
I'll push back just a bit.
Yeah.
So what are we trying to do here? We're not going for volume now. If we are in this 2, we're switching away from volume.
Ecological impact. Replacing a gas stove is not gonna have a huge ecological impact.
Volume while.
No, we're
optimizing
talking about
climate
replacing the heat pump,
Right,
the water.
but if the alternative,
The water
is you're
heater.
gonna say, well, we're gonna replace everybody's gas stove, it's not.
No.
hey guys, there's a lot of, I'm just gonna encourage all of us to take a breath because it's getting late. It's getting late. There's a lot here.
Okay.
Yeah, but we
And,
have to finish.
We do have to finish. I just
Right,
want us to
so-
pause and hear one person at a time and just
Okay,
have some,
that's good.
yeah, so
So-
Rebecca, please, what are you hearing from us?
Alejandra and I were chatting here about the phase 2 of the home upgrade and, so that's what's coming, right, in January 2024.
2024, yeah.
Yeah, And so that would definitely include those two appliances, space heating and water heating at zero cost.
Great, so we say, let's go with PCEs, phase 2 approach. For Menlo Park residents and, you know, we target in this particular area. I like the idea of them not having to administer a completely different program for us.
I guess what I'm saying is that they would already provide that service without the 4.5 million.
Yeah, but our program is like countywide with the additional funding, what you're doing is just serving more homes in Menlo Park, specifically District 1. The funding that we are gonna have is for countywide. We're not gonna particularly target Menlo Park over other cities.
So the money could.
Yeah, so this money would go towards the area that we really want to focus. Okay, that sounds great.
Maybe two more quick edits. On the Quick Start program to get heating and cooling in Bellhaven, could we maybe add a comma and then supported by a blueprint for full electrification? And then put to be developed, because we still haven't captured this idea that this needs to be the start of a journey.
I'm not so worried about that.
When you say blueprint for full electrification, what do you mean?
So I look at water heating and space heating cooling as the starting point. And then, but there's more things that need to be done, right?
Like what?
I don't know, pool heating or like solar or other things that are on that list, right? So I feel like if we're gonna be focused and we're gonna move people along a journey, we need a blueprint of what that journey looks like. Just getting those two things done isn't.
I mean, to me, that's huge. When the analysis was like, the heat pump water or the gas water heaters and the gas furnaces have a huge ecological negative impact. And if we were to change those two things, I think people would then be on the journey and they might make all the other changes
Not the point I'm
themselves.
arguing at all. I
Okay.
totally agree with that. I'm just saying. A clause after that that says those two things are part of a broader journey. Let's map that out so we can educate people about what that journey looks like.
I wouldn't want to put that requirement on the homeowner that they have a.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Well, I think RHA, which is the entity that you currently partner with to do these upgrades, there is a homeowner education piece, right? Where they talk to the homeowners about what the options are and what the potential benefits are. And then the homeowners then opt in to what they want to do within reason.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't the next biggest impact solar? And the challenge with solar is right now, we just went to an AM3, which makes it a lot less economically compelling.
Yeah.
And with PCE, you get 100% clean energy anyway. So.
Right, so I'm not so worried about that. I think if we could get the HVAC and the water heater, like that's a huge win that we could all celebrate. And I don't want to make this more complicated than it needs to be. That's my,
Agreed.
yeah.
But how does that make it more complicated?
Well, I just don't even know really what you're. Well, I mean, we could always say there's a phase 2 that comes and we could create that later. Like, I kind of want to, like, let's get the money, let's get going, let's start it.
Can I clarify, what did you want to, just to understand what you were trying?
Just about where we talked about.
Yeah.
Under the 2 appliances per home.
Yeah.
There's a second part of that this is the starting point of a journey. So there's a blueprint to full electrification. Whole home electrification, right?
Right,
So let's call these steps 1 and 2. So then let's also add something in here about, and we're gonna map out 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Or
whatever
maybe,
those are.
and we'll educate homeowners about the steps they can take.
can do
to
that.
Complete their
Sure.
home electrification.
And I'm calling that a blueprint. I mean, all that means to me is, or a roadmap. All that means is there are other steps to full electrification beyond these. So I'm not arguing
Okay, I'm
either
okay with
or. I'm
that.
saying
Like, if
a-
it's something
it's a-
clear and like,
It's an and.
we will make sure homeowners know about
The full
the steps they can take
electrification
to-
journey,
I'm
right,
okay with
or
that.
whatever we call it, but it's
the
just,
full decarbonization.
I don't want us to get those two things in 800 homes and go, oh, victory, we're fully electrified.
Right,
That-
okay,
that's
I
not
get what
what-
you're saying,
that's
because
not
we could
what-
also talk to them about EVs
Yeah, I
or
was
whatever
gonna
else.
say,
We could talk about solar, we could.
Okay. Support homeowners. Okay, great. I'm bored now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
me too.
Thank you for helping us. All right, so establish a goal to achieve a high volume of homes, quick start program, workforce development, partnering. I kind of wonder if that bullet point about PCE needs to be like the first
Yeah.
bullet,
Yeah.
because that seems really important,
It
like,
does.
let's go
You
with
wanna go
them.
quick, Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to stop sharing just for a quick second.
Yeah.
Because my battery is running so low.
No, bye-bye.
Maybe Rebecca, only one thing as you're doing that is the workforce development, could we call that workforce development starter funds as well? Just so it's a little.
That sounds good.
crisper.
Yes.
Yeah. Great point.
I mean, yeah, I got a text from someone, will not say who, to be mysterious.
Are they texting all of us?
No, I'll just say that,
Workforce
none of this would preclude a homeowner from also getting an electric dryer or an electric induction stove. Those
Sure.
are small costs. If they wanted them, it could be part of the program if it made sense.
Do we want to add that to the words?
That's it.
Well, I know, but yeah, those are relatively low cost and the big health impacts too. For
Right,
families. And
yeah.
Some of them may not
The
want it.
health, I think that will be the
Some
only
of them
reason
may
to
not
do it. The only reason
want
to
it.
do it is for the health. Because,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm 100% electric except for gas. I pay.
Hey,
Sorry, because, sorry, except for the gas range, right?
Yeah.
We're paying, something like 6 terms a month for the gas range. That's it. I mean, it's nothing. There's no gas.
It's much less gas.
It's just a
It's a health issue.
It's okay.
Which
Yeah.
is a significant issue for
It is,
folks
it is.
in District.
And not everybody will want one, and we're
Right.
not gonna make them get it
Yeah.
if they don't want it. But I'm trying to make sure that this language doesn't preclude those homeowners who want to tack that on. It's such a low expense.
I think that makes sense, especially because it's voluntary. People are gonna be in different places. Some will
Yeah.
want to do the whole thing and others.
Some people might already
Would
have like,
you? Would an induction range cover for instead of a space heater?
No, we're saying those two are.
Well, I know that's the way it's.
Oh,
written.
okay, you wanna say this.
yeah,
The
I mean,
question
not every
was
home
intended
is
to-
gonna, I mean, there's some homes who participated like with Meta and might already have a heat pump water heater, and so some might just need.
Okay, so it might be like ensure that they have both the space heating and the water heating as electric.
Yeah,
And so it might be only one that they need because they've already done
So are
it.
we saying no substitutions that, well, are we saying, it's because I hear your point, and the question is, do we educate them about that, or do we put real dollars behind it? Because if we're putting dollars behind it, it's a substitution. Versus they're ineligible.
those are so much less expensive that I feel like it's easy enough for those to be part of the program if folks want it. And I think the home upgrade program provides those as options now. And it could be up to the homeowner if they want to tack that on. It's such a small piece of the financial pie. And it's big on help for families that want it, but I'd
Yeah.
love for those options to exist for folks while they're already in there. I don't think it's that, I mean, because you can get an induction stove and once the wiring is done, you just plunk it in. Mostly.
The other thing about, if we got more people to, there is this myth about the gas, reliance on gas. That it perpetuates, oh, you want a gas stove, you want a gas. If we can break that one, that's going to help a lot with electrification. of the longer term.
Okay, so can we all read this and see what edits we want to
Yeah,
make?
I was sort of, I don't know that we need to get into this, but I just wanted to make clear that I personally don't think that this language would preclude our administrator, if it's PCE, from offering those smaller pieces to homeowners that want them.
Is your base, does PCE phase 2 include electric?
Phase 2 will actually offer whole home electrification to every qualified home, but it won't require, like the resident to fully electrify their home. It'll just require one large end use, which is a water heater or space heater.
Okay,
Yeah,
but I think
Ju-
what we're
just
saying
one,
is we
yeah.
want to have two.
it'll offer everything, but to participate, it'll require at least one.
Does it require phase 1 first and then phase 2, or can you jump right to phase 2?
Participation in phase 1? Oh, no. Right now, like, we just call the program like phase 1 because it's kind of like, the first iteration of the program. There's not like a, like resident has to participate in phase 1 and then phase 2. It's just like a next iteration and really more of a scaled up program, both in terms of how many homes we're serving and the amount of work that we're doing in each home, because we're talking about, going from like an average budget of like $7,000 per home to doing like 30,000 plus per home. And doing a lot more homes per year. So it's a really big ramp up in terms of the program. So that's why it's like phase 2.
Yeah, because my worry with phase one of the program relative to this is, if I remember, I included things like fixing the windows and the door gaps and that, like a lot of home improvement kind of things that I feel like are important, but could take us down a really big rabbit hole, right?
Do we, well,
Okay, so I'm getting another text from another person who shall remain mysterious. And it's a reminder, and I did mention this at the beginning, but I'm gonna repeat it. Menlo Spark does have a blueprint on how to do this at a budget of like 20 to 25,000 per home and
Whole home electrification.
yeah, well, yes, with a priority for the heat pumps.
Yeah.
With a little bit for home safety and improvements and installations, but nothing big like windows. It's gonna take the whole budget. And includes the portable resilience package.
Oh, okay.
And so maybe we could just mention that leverages that existing blueprint, if you want to call it that. That Menlo Spark already has, and I can tell you too that they use that blueprint for the 2 Bellhaven homes that were just completed, for which there's a press release going out tomorrow.
That's great.
And there'll be some cool videos you can watch on those 2 homes and the appliances they got.
I feel like we're really making progress. Can we all pause and read this one more time and see what, and like, I want comments to be specific edits. Please. Okay.
Yeah, and so maybe we don't even need to provide induction stoves on demand. I mean, we can, it's maybe duplicative of what's already in the blueprint, which is that folks are offered induction stoves and even look like low cost efficient electric water heater dryer combinations for those who want it. But again, not everybody does.
Yeah, I'm fine with deleting that.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of? Is the bullet that says quick start program to get heating and cooling in District 1, is that separate from the insured leads water heating and space heating cooling?
Yeah.
Yes. So what is different about the quick start program?
Well, I mean, I think the intention was, you know, if it ends up that this money sits with the city and not with PCE, and I know we're recommending to the contrary, but if it were to sit with the city, it would have to go through an RFP process that can take quite some time. And we were concerned that we would miss the window for summer and fall to get the high need Bellhaven residents, the cooling. And so we were hoping to get.
So maybe we should rephrase the quick start to be the high need. Right? So
Yeah.
which ones we
Or
did.
maybe
do that.
rephrase
So
bullet.
clarification here, I mean,
Yeah,
the high volume is the second, it's a separate thing from the
Yeah.
purview. So we're going for
yeah.
high impact first and then high
Right.
volume.
It's
Okay.
more about like
I can go with
expediency
that.
of access to
Yeah,
funds.
that's fine.
And I don't know if that would apply to PCE. I mean, maybe. I mean, I think maybe it could. Maybe we don't need it if it goes through PCE, but I don't know that I would delete it. I mean,
Well, so,
I think it helps to say, let's get some of these high need homes moving one way
Yes.
or another.
I wonder if we combine that bullet with the first bullet, support partnering with PCE to expedite the movement of this, including, you know, something about that.
but we want to say it's not just District 1, it's high risk or high need families in
For
District
the
1.
quick start, yeah.
The quick start.
Mhm.
Quick start program to get heating and cooling.
Can we somehow do a quick check on how many families fit the constraint we're talking about?
The high need,
Low income, District 1, that they actually already have gas, heating, cooling.
Yeah, I mean, I
Just to make sure that set is not zero.
I mean, I think most folks still have gas appliances across the board, and so I think it's got that part's.
Yeah,
gonna be- Yeah.
But it's high need about.
It depends on when they were built, right?
Or is
Oh,
it
no.
about elderly or people
Elderly,
with?
people at risk
Yeah.
for cardiac, heat stroke.
I'd call that populations, not homes. I need population.
I need, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, if you get electrification to folks sooner rather than later, hopefully you provide it to the high need population first, but you're benefiting any family that gets access to cooling for the 2023 heat waves who didn't have it before. So there's always value in speed.
All right, I feel like this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say good evening.
Is there a motion on the floor?
I move that we make this recommendation to
I second the motion.
Thank you, all in favor?
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously.
Woohoo! All right, guys, we only have one more agenda item and it's gonna be really fast. I know. You all thought you were done.
Is this that?
It's super fast.
Is it?
It's super fast. We're gonna be out of here by 9:30 at the very latest. Okay, thank you all for that robust conversation. I'm super excited. All right, D4. Consider appointing additional commissioners. So we have two subcommittees right now, building decarb, which these two are on, climate outreach, which Jeff and I are on. So these two subcommittees.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Each of the subcommittees can have a third person. And as you all know, we eliminated the non-active subcommittees last time, and our hope is in our upcoming meeting in July, we'll be able to look at proposals for the scope of these two subcommittees for what they're actually going to do going forward. So we have an opportunity to add one more person to each of these subcommittees or change, them however they want. And it seemed like this would be a good time to add people if they wanted to get involved, so they could be part of the scoping process outside of this conversation. So that's what we're doing here. Let's see, are there any clarifying questions about this agenda item from the EQC? Is there any public comment?
Or could you, if there's anybody who is online who would like to make public comment for up to 3 minutes, please use the raise hand feature. And Ori, our management analyst, he will be able to unmute you and you can address the commission for up to 3 minutes. Thank you so much, Ori.
Right, now we know we need to bring our power cord. I know, well, that was me too, I had to take off the Zoom. I'm not hearing any desire for public comment, so would anybody like to join any of these subcommittees?
I'm happy to join either. So wherever I'm needed.
Before we ask though, I think we're talking about rescoping the climate outreach one to be more focused.
We're talking about rescoping both.
Yeah, so I'm curious on the building decarbonization, before people volunteer to join, do we need to give them an indication of where things are going?
I think the job is for whoever the three people are on these subcommittees is to figure out where it should go and then bring it back here in July.
Okay.
So that's the job of these people. And that's why we wanted to offer the opportunity for a third person to join the discussion.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else interested?
I'm interested in either one.
Okay,
Well, my preference would be building decarbonization, but again, I'm happy either way.
all right.
And
Are
like
you
there's space for
interested?
3 in both. I won't take that. I won't fight you for it.
You have seniority, you have.
No.
It's true, yeah, you go first.
We could also have resignations from people if they're tired. Yeah, but do you,
Yeah, seriously, you should go. You've been on.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm actually happy to drop out of the outreach one, because I think most of my thoughts if you guys both wanted to do outreach. I'm happy to give up my spot. And I'm happy to share my thoughts maybe offline, but I don't have to be part of the.
but not violating the Brown Act. You can share your thoughts in the EQC meeting in July.
Well, you already know most of my thoughts, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna make a motion. Can I make a motion as the chair?
Go for it.
I move that these two guys join the outreach committee and
Okay.
Brian joins the building decarbonization. Is there a second?
Second.
Vote? We got that done in like 5 minutes.
Whatever you guys want,
You.
I think, personally, I think that I have maybe more technical than
Okay.
Brian on that. No, wait.
Outreach.
But on the other hand, I think that you have more economics part, and that's very important. So I
That's
can
you guys
see
are
both
talking
ways.
about that, though. I
So
mean,
what-
you should discuss it a
go-
little bit.
Let us
It's not
discuss.
my decision.
I'm happy.
Go, go, go.
I think it's mostly how do you guys want to contribute, right? Because this is a volunteer thing. We
Yeah.
should be energized by whatever it is we're doing. So that's my main requirement, is that you
So my-
care.
yeah.
And that it would be fun for you and.
I'll do outreach.
The one thing, no, wait, the way I think that I can contribute to the outreach, yeah, I'm looking at it, is I can speak Spanish. So I can do that. I don't know how many other people in this,
We also
People
need
can do it.
Spanish speaking.
right.
But.
Yeah.
so I can do that. I can go to just pick one and talk.
Flip a coin.
No, no, it's okay. I'll do it. I mean, I'll turn
Okay.
it. Are you alone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, are you okay with it?
Yeah. I find the brown app to be very complicated, but that's okay.
We'll keep you on the.
Great, all in favor?
So, sorry, just to clarify, when you said these two guys,
Oh,
which
sorry.
two guys and to
Sorry,
which
it was
subcommittee?
Commissioner Lynn and Commissioner Pellegrini Yopart joining the outreach committee, Commissioner Schmidt dropping off. So it'd be Headley, Lynn, and Pellegrini Yopart on the outreach. And Kessel, McKenna, and Evans on building decarbonization.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to have goals and target goals and percentages.
Metrics.
We totally are.
That's gonna be Jeff's job is gonna make sure we got metrics.
There's a special.
Yeah.
one.
Can we take a vote and go home, people?
Can I ask just one thing now that the PC folks are gone?
We're
Is-
still in a public meeting that's being recorded and,
But we can finish the meeting.
I mean, you can have.
Well,
a
I just,
conversation.
what I worry about is, they were already gonna fund this. And now we're putting our money into it, so, differentially, they're gonna put their money into other municipalities.
It'll be additive. Oh,
If they were gonna give it
Oh, I see what you're
proportionally
saying.
across municipalities. And now we're saying, well, we got 4.5 million, we're gonna put it here, then they're just gonna shift it elsewhere.
Should we put in a requirement or a request back to
yeah,
the previous
that we
thing?
not lose.
They are
whatever.
proportionate.
I just thought we can work through those details, because we had this, similar questions that
Okay.
you have raised.
Yeah, as long
and
as we
trying
get a
to figure out-
proportional representation
yeah.
independent of our additional money.
Right.
She did seem to say that it was additive, though. I mean, I wouldn't want to hold her to that, but I heard a version of
Okay,
that.
I think we should try to
Make sure it's locked in, yeah.
Yeah, my main concern is the single homeowner versus tenant and, I mean, renter and apartments.
Which
Well,
might
but
be
I
a
think we
second
said we were
phase.
gonna focus on
Homeowners. for
I
this
know.
time.
I agree, we've got to get there too.
Okay, so everyone, we're on D4. And I think
Staff,
we,
you don't-
we need to vote.
You're like,
Okay, all in favor of, Commissioner Kissel joining the Building Decarbonization Coalition, Commissioner Lynn and Pellegrini Yopart joining outreach. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everyone's raised their hands. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so sadly, we're on section E, reports and announcements from staff and commissioners, which in the past has been very lengthy. Can I maybe encourage us to send emails to Rebecca? Like if you have an announcement, email it to Rebecca by noon, and maybe you can consolidate and send us an email tomorrow.
I will do the same. For
Is that, okay, so sometime tomorrow we'll get an update. Is that cool?
maybe by Friday.
Great, Friday, perfect.
Just one thing I want to just say, though, is please try to put in your calendar the budget meeting that's coming up.
The
Will you
27th.
will you send a note to her? Like, I was gonna ask you that earlier. I would like a reminder, just so I don't forget.
Some kind of calendar invite.
Are you subscribed to the city council agenda?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so send it to-
All right, no, maybe send a message.
Put it in your calendar.
27th.
Don't bother Rebecca.
6
She's
p.m.
done- she's done that.
Since we're here publicly, just put it in your calendar.
Yeah, everyone show up. All right, okay. It is 9:25.
So was it have?
We are
5 more
adjourning.
minutes?
No, we are adjourning this meeting at 9:25. Good work, everyone. Thank you all for coming. And if any people are online, thank you for sitting through all that. Excellent work. Have a great one.
Thanks, everybody.
Can you remind me, now we're, how long this